I'm a little rusty on it.
I'll hum it for you.
I think that's enough. Alrighty. How is everyone doing? How is everyone doing? I'm gonna move something. Ooh, gum? Do I want this? I do. Alright. How is everyone doing? It's Monday, April 10th, 2023. Let's do the intro really quick. How's everyone doing? Hi there. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you might be watching this. My name is Josh and welcome to my channel. On here we cover news, politics, and current events, and boy do we have some current events. All right, so we're going like straight in to this Louisville story, and then after that I know I have to pass the time. I'm sorry. All right, I've only been doing this a couple months. You always gotta like fill time because you know you're like try to remember what the process is. You know, it's been a couple days since I started a stream, but doing well. Thank you for asking. Yeah. Then I want to look at. I guess we had some Ukraine documents leak on Minecraft of all places. Or on, I think it was like on a Discord server. Take a look at that. I want to revisit some of the anti-abortion stuff really quickly, and then if we have time, I want to take a look at a YouTuber that we don't actually look at on here. I don't think we've watched on here. Named John Doyle. I've seen a couple of his videos before in the past from other people, but this is apparently he's very concerned about the arrest of Donald Trump, which I don't know. I always thought these people were all about law and order, but you know, law and order's all nice and all until it comes to fall on your side. So whatever. Either way, let's get started. So is anybody else shocked that we have a mass shooting occurring once again in America, this time in Louisville, Kentucky, a state which just recently actually what's the word I'm looking for, loosened some of their gun restrictions. So that's all great, you know. That's one way. What is this? Oh, is this the same article I opened twice? Wow, I'm stupid. Let's just take a look real quick.
We have breaking news. Police say there are multiple casualties after reports of an active shooter at a bank in downtown Louisville. Police are asking people to stay away from the area. Keep following this developing story.
Is that really it?
George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks.
Is that really it? God, what is it like for people? What is it like for normal people who watch TV where this is all they get? Okay, hit me with some. Oh boy. Oh, there's like no sound in this at all. Uh-huh. I saw like a video. Okay, let's see if we can find something a little bit more. Louisville shooter, maybe? Let's see. Stop it. Let's see. Yeah, what is this? I want to see this. This is the exact same video I just found. If that's seriously a picture of dude just walking around with an AR-15, Jesus Christ. Aerial footage shows aftermath. Hit me with it.
Let's go to CNN's Omar Jimenez, who has been following this since just a few moments ago, watching all this happen. Did you hear anything?
Wow, I didn't know Louisville was on the border like that.
We now know there are 6 people who have been shot, including a police officer. Do we hear anything about their conditions?
Back to blue, right?
Like
well, you know, we got the tragic update as we're seeing that 5 people are dead, 6 taken to the hospital after this shooting. And obviously, when you first get reports of an active shooter, of an active aggressor, these are the types of reports that you worry about, that the situation updates to the casualties that we're seeing here, the
6
fatalities
taken on,
that are being reported here. Now, One thing that we did learn from this as well is that the active aggressor threat, as they described it, was over. They said the suspected shooter has been neutralized, or the shooter has been neutralized at this point. We're also learning a little bit more about what was happening as this was unfolding, but this is coming from a witness account who is nearby, who spoke to one of our affiliates, saying he got a call from his wife who said there was an active shooter and that she was locked inside a vault at the Old National Bank here. And so the man called 911.
Genius.
But officers were already aware. This was
Fucking just lock yourself in the vault, call it a day.
In the morning there. He described it as a traumatic phone call with his wife.
That's what we need. We just need just install enormous impenetrable vaults in schools.
Sheltering at the time. He's since talked to her and that she's okay, but obviously this was a situation that the shooter was actively firing at folks, and we know at least one person, potentially even others, were sheltering inside a bank vault just to be safe, just to protect themselves.
Jesus.
And so obviously we've gotten the update from police that some of these casualties have confirmed now into fatalities, and that others have been taken to the hospital. Their conditions are still
I guess
unknown.
casualties,
We know the
you can be a
governor
casualty
is
without
headed out to
dying,
the
I
scene
suppose.
right now. We know there's law enforcement at multiple jurisdictions that have said they are responding at the local level, Louisville police, but also ATF, FBI. And so I think at this point, we're now waiting to see what develops from here, including the potential identity of the shooter here. And we watch to see if these numbers unfortunately grow as they typically do when we get into the early stages of reporting.
I think one of the things that really irritates me with the way that we cover mass shootings also isn't it kind of he kind of said it there for a moment where it's like, oh, the identity of the person and the da-da-da-da-da. And I feel like while there is a valuable element to understanding the person and the I suppose the demographic that somebody fits into, I don't actually think that, at least in the case of guns and mass shootings, that that's something that the media should really be focusing on. And I say that mainly because what does knowing the person's identity, give us necessarily about the information about the shooting, basically? I've heard rumblings. I don't want to say anything's confirmed, but I've seen that the person who committed this mass shooting was a former employee, which I think is probably more helpful information to give a voter, a viewer of CNN than, oh yeah, the guy's a white guy, a black guy, or whatever. I just always feel like the media gets really interested in not just identifying the shooter, but then doing their whole reporting on who this person was, what drove them to this, and like the aspects of their life and a lot of this stuff. I don't know. Sometimes it just feels like kind of our obsession in American culture with bad guys, our for whatever reason, good or bad, our interest in I don't even want to say traditional hero figures. It's like, why are there movies like Taxi Driver or The Joker or Dog Day Afternoon or what's the one where the dude, they did a Bruce Willis remake of it, but it's a Bronson movie from back in the day. Shit. I can't remember what it's called. What is it? God damn it. It's going to bother the shit out of me. Bruce Willis. Charles Bronson? There it is. That's what I want. Death Wish. That's what it is. Like movies like why do we have all of these kinds of films in American culture? I think this is a pretty uniquely American export in terms of our fiction, in terms of our media, narratives that we create in our media. That is always kind of looking into these and trying to understand and these figures who either commit mass shootings or go on like rampage, and people who are really morally gray, I guess. I don't know. I just feel like we have that perspective play out in our media, in our fictional media, a lot, where it's, you're interested in those topics and in how those people got to the point that they are. But then unfortunately our news media, the thing that's supposed to give us information on how to vote, how to understand the world around us, how to synthesize information, all this stuff, seems to always be interested in the honestly kind of frivolous aspects to a degree of some of these shooters. I don't know, it's just weird to me. That's all. It's always this interest in, let's identify the shooter, let's get to know this person, without really, I don't know, a interest in having the conversation about guns and gun violence. And, the certain, CNN's a little bit better about that, but they are kind of interested in the spectacle of a shooting, I think. But either way, is this on? Oh, what's going on in NPR right now? Oh, okay, it's got weird updates. 5 dead, 9 injured. Oh boy. Let's see. Gunman opened fire Old National Bank building Monday. Gunman, shooter who police referred to as he is believed to be an employee of the bank. Makes sense. Shooting unfolded right across from Louisville's Slugger Field during peak commuting hours. Separate unrelated shooting. Jesus Christ. Police say 2 officers were shot, including one taken to a local hospital. So keep in mind, like, people who advocate for more guns, you are putting cops in more danger. You can say that you back the blue, but more guns in the hands of more people, especially in the case of Florida, who just got rid of their concealed carry permit requirements, that is going to make officers less safe, because now you have no way to track and identify and verify that somebody like legally has a firearm. It's just going to make any random stop that police are already told are dangerous, when they're not actually that dangerous. But any random stop, now there is a ramped up attention there. I feel like. Mayor asked for prayers after shooting. Yeah. Mayor Craig Deemers decried the evil act of gun violence. Makes sense. That took multiple lives this morning in the cities. In a statement shared on Twitter. Show me. Our city has experienced another horrific tragedy this morning with a mass shooting at Old National Bank. One of them. Therefore, an evil act of gun violence took multiple lives and left several people, including one of our police officers, fighting for their lives. Rachel and I, the men and women of the LMPD, and our entire city ask you join us in praying for the recovery of those receiving medical care, the families of those who lost loved ones, and those who are scared, heartbroken of what happened this morning. Our deepest gratitude is the heroic efforts of the first responders who arrived within minutes of being called and who risked their lives to save others. We will continue to provide updates. Okay, so literally, thoughts and prayers. Thoughts and prayers. Join us. Yeah. 4 people killed. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, okay. So this is my thing. This is probably a lovely commentary on where we are in the United States right now. We are in a place where 5 people are shot dead, one of them being a police officer, if that's not technically added to that number. Is that technically part of that 5 number? Let's see. Multiple lives, several people, including... Okay, so, yeah. But either way, a police officer is dead. Another one is in the hospital. Multiple people are dead now. And multiple more now injured as well with that other police officer. And the only thing, as the mayor of this city, imagine for just a moment, that this was your family, that this was your wife, these were your kids, this was maybe even you getting injured. And as you're laying there, bullets being fired off in the room you're in, you probably caught a stray, possibly. Imagine the thought, the idea that if you get out of this, you are no safer than you were the day before. Keep that in mind. You're the mayor of your city, the person who you elected to be responsible for the safety and the function of the city you live in, saying, all I have to say for any of you are my condolences and my prayers. And that's all I'm going to ask from my constituents. I'm not going to ask that we change anything. I'm not going to ask that we fix anything. I'm not going to ask that we do anything. All I'm going to ask is that we all come together and say, wow, that sucked, and move on. You're like, I cannot imagine laying there wondering if I'm going to survive, coming to the realization that even if I survive, I'm no safer. Nothing will change. After this bullet gets taken out of me, I'm going to go back into the world and I'm going to have the exact same amount of chance that I did a week ago to getting shot again. That's the world we live in. Biden urges action on gun safety. Yeah, what's new? The White House has issued a full statement on the mass shooting in Louisville. Once again, our nation is mourning after a senseless act of gun violence. Jill and I are praying for those killed and injured in the tragic shooting in Louisville and for survivors who will carry grief and trauma for the rest of their lives. And again, this isn't any better. This isn't any better. Joe Biden can say that he, that he supports gun reform, all the rest of the stuff, right? But Democrats had a majority in the Senate, had a majority in the House. And did they pass any meaningful gun legislation? No, they didn't. They passed that piss poor, half-ass, bullshit gun reform bill. If I remember doing a video on it, it was absolutely and utterly, it's the most half-measured thing I have ever seen in my life. You know, it addresses a few very specific, very edge case problems without offering any regulation, any reforms, anything that's going to meaningfully make more the majority, the vast majority of all of us safer. So, I mean, when I say that Democrats are not innocent on this. They have had numbers of opportunities. They've had any number of opportunities since even the Obama era to do anything about this, the ramped up gun violence that we're seeing. They could have renewed the fucking assault weapons ban, which, while I don't believe was the best legislation or even or even what we need right now, at the very least, you could see a reduction, just plainly a reduction in mass shootings during the time of the assault weapons ban. And since it's expired, we've seen a slow but steady ramp up in these kinds of shootings. Like it's not a fix all, but fuck, at least it was something that. It was something. I mean, shit. Biden has frequently called on Congress to pass an assault weapons ban following major mass shootings during his administration. In today's message, Biden called on lawmakers to act on several. Goddamn, Biden, you're the fucking president, dude. Why am I only hearing this from you? Like this is the part where I get frustrated with Democrats, because only after a shooting do they come out and they want to talk about the issue of gun violence, talk about the issue of mass shootings, when you need to be hammering this home every single day. Every single day you need to be hammering this home. Not just when it makes the news. Because when you only do it when it just makes the news, you look, and let's be honest here, you're being opportunistic. That's all you're doing. And everyone can see that really plainly. But if you make it an actual part of your critique, part of your vision, to stop this stuff, then people can take you a lot more seriously. And also then you keep it in people's minds. We're not going to hear. People are, now that this has happened, we're not going to talk about the Nashville shooter until the manifesto comes out. But otherwise, we're not going to talk about it. And when the manifesto comes out, then we're going to talk about that. And we're not going to talk about any gun control. So You have to stay on top of this stuff. It's long past time that we require safe storage of firearms, require background checks on all gun sales, eliminate gun manufacturers' immunity from liability. I'm still not sure about that one, but I know they say that. I don't really. I don't know if that's. I don't know. I don't know if that's. I don't know. I'm not sold on the liability shield part, or I guess the elimination of the liability shield. We can and must do these things now. Strong majority of Americans want lawmakers to act on common sense gun safety reforms. Instead, for Florida, North Carolina, the U.S. House of Representatives, we've watched Republican officials double down on dangerous bills that make our schools, places of worship, and communities, and police, by the way, less safe. It's unconscionable, it's reckless, and too many Americans are paying with their lives. Yeah, I think I remember we watched, we watched Charlie Kirk say last week, "Hey, look, this is the reality. This is the trade." And Charlie Kirk, and I think at least he was being honest in that moment. He pretty much said, like, yeah, this is the sacrifice we're gonna make. I'm okay with this. And I respect the honesty. And if that's your honest to God opinion, if your actual take is, look, all of this is worth it for us to have our right to carry firearms and protect ourselves from the government or whatever, then that's fine. But just say that. Don't be dishonest and make it about a million other things. If you think it's worth the cost of children's lives, of random people at a bank's lives, then just say it. But you don't. But people don't. There are 2A activists who simply don't want to cop to that because they know how politically ineffective and how politically, I can't even say dangerous. Oh, thanks, Zaviz? No. How do you say the X and then into a Z? Zaziz? I don't know. But thank you anyway. But where was I? Fuck. I lost my train of thought. God damn it. Zazie. Okay. Oh, I don't know why I was putting an extra Z on there. Fuck. Now I was distracted. What was my point? I remember. Wait, it's coming. It's on the, it's synthesizing. God, I have like the worst ADHD. Being gun rights. Yes, thank you. But yeah, it's just, it sounds awful if you come out and say, oh yeah, I think it's all been worth all the gun violence. I think my Second Amendment right is worth Columbine, is worth the well, I guess there was a shooting at VCU, wasn't there? The UVA shooting, every single shooting that we've had, fucking Sandy Hook, all of them. If you want to say, it sounds awful to say, look, all of that was worth it because we have freedom and we have guns, and we're allowed to, to own our weapons and everything else. It sounds awful, and they already know it's a losing argument. So they pivot to every other little thing. And they always make gun ownership about protecting your home from home invaders, which, like, yeah, that's really that common. And again, I think I've said this before. If you believe that somebody's broken into your home, you call the police. You know what they're going to tell you? They're not going to tell you to pick up a gun and go confront that person. They're going to tell you to barricade and lock yourself in your room or whatever room you're in, call the police and wait for them to show up and deal with it. That's what they're going to tell you, because that's the actual safe thing to do. But there are people who actively don't choose the safest option because they want to feel like an action hero. They want to feel like John Wick. They want to feel like they're this tough macho action guy or whatever. And because of that, they put all of us at risk. So I'm not in favor of the ownership of firearms, but this is the cost, and people need, and I wish more people would be honest about it. Charlie Kirk, I don't think realizes how honest he was, but still. A recent Kentucky law makes the state a so-called Second Amendment sanctuary. Yes. Today's shooting came less than 2 weeks after a new Kentucky law took effect that blocks state and local law enforcement for participating in any federal bans on guns, ammunition, or firearms accessories. which that makes sense. Anyone who violates the statute, a so-called Second Amendment sanctuary law, could be fired from their job and charged with a misdemeanor. Republican Representative Josh Bray, who sponsored the bill, told Louisville Public Media it meant that local and state authorities could not roll up and enforce any unconstitutional bans. Well, you would have to, first of all, unconstitutional ban, you would have to get that verified by the Supreme Court. Secondly, I think we saw didn't we see like a picture? One second. No. Louisville. Yeah, I'm pretty. Yeah. Like, keep in mind. Oh my God, this is a small ass picture. This guy, if this is a picture of this guy, which I don't know, but it seems to be. I trust the AP on this one. If this guy is rolling down the street with this AR-15 right here, the idea from Second Amendment advocates is that this is perfectly okay. He should be allowed to do this. He has a right to do this. Now, the problem is, and if you talk to any police officer, the problem with broad open carry is that you can't identify threats from non-threats. Have you ever gone to the arcade? You played those like Area 51 games, or maybe Time Crisis. Oh, does Time Crisis have the innocent people? Every once in a while, Time Crisis has the innocent people. But you ever notice, like, there's all the dudes pop up with AKs, you shoot them, right? And then every once in a while, there's like a rando person who runs out. It's like a lady in like a dress. She's like, right? Now, imagine she's holding a gun. What do you think your immediate response is? And how many times, if you've played those games, even the people who aren't armed and run out and are all like, how many times you accidentally shoot them because you identify them as a threat way too quickly because everybody around you is a threat? This is what we mean. I know it's kind of a silly example, but this is for police the way that they approach random citizens. If everyone's armed, if everyone's like open carrying, they wouldn't be able to tell who's dangerous, who's not dangerous, because all they see is people participating or not participating, not executing. Fuck, what's the word I'm looking for? Not participating, not executing. Fuck. Exercising, that's what it is. People exercising their Second Amendment rights, let alone all it takes is one person. If everyone's open and carry, all it takes is one person to go bang, 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 before any of the 5 people who just got shot ever had even a second's chance to respond in kindly with their firearms, let alone in a scenario where that guy shoots a bunch of people. Maybe the other 12 people in the room also fire back. We have a huge gunfight going on. A bunch of people catch strays. And when the police show up, they don't know who's a threat. They don't know who's not a threat. And even in any firearm exchange, you don't know who's shooting at you a lot of the times. They're just coming off of nowhere. And most of the time you're like, well, I don't know if there's another person, if there isn't another person. It muddies the water. It makes every situation harder to find, harder to know about, harder to know where the sides are. Are there sides? Was this 2 people got into an argument, guns popped off, and then both of their friend circles went to 2 sides and just started firing back at each other? Is this a case where one guy, is it 2 guys? The police can never know. Information is very light in these scenarios. It's just, and again, it just makes less strict laws just naturally make people less safe. With every right, there comes responsibility by the people to hold it responsibly. Now, the consequences of people who abuse that responsibility can come to fruition with guns through people abusing them by hurting others. The sacrifice of giving up guns to me isn't worth it. Let's see. Isn't worth it. It's funny that the argument you made is essentially what I think about guns, which is come to fruition with guns. The sacrifice of giving up guns. I'm pro-gun. You're pro-gun. Interesting. So did any of that penetrate like, you understand what I'm saying when I say that we're not less safe. We are by definition, by definition in more danger with the more open laws that we have. Anyway. Let's see. Republican. The bill approved by Kentucky's Republican majority legislature and became law late last month after Democrat Governor Andy Beshear neither signed nor vetoed it. Why didn't he just veto it? Police have not said how the suspected shooter, obtained the gun or guns used in Monday's attack. In a series of tweets, Bashar called the shooting in downtown Louisville a tragedy and senseless act and said the victims' families need us to wrap our arms around them and love them with all our hearts. That's nice. Last year, after the shooting at an elementary school in Uvalde, Bashir said any changes to Kentucky's gun laws would require the buy-in of state legislature leadership. Hospital says 9 patients have been treated in total. That's good. Police investigate separate shooting in downtown. Lovely. One person was killed and another injured in a separate shooting this morning in Louisville's downtown area. According to local reports, the shooting happened outside a Jefferson Community and Technical College building. Police said not far from the mass shooting that occurred a little more than a mile away at the city's old National Bank building on East Main Street earlier this morning. Louisville Metro Police tweeted that the suspects in the second, smaller shooting fled prior to police arrival. Lovely. The school shared that its technical campus will remain on lockdown following reports of the shooting, and also announced all campuses would close at 12 p.m. Makes sense. President Biden says Americans aren't paying the price of inaction. In a tweet, Biden offered the condolences. Too many Americans. Yeah, we read this, and he's not wrong, but again, it all just comes down to being honest for me, and I find a lot of 2A activists aren't honest about this. Consistently called for Congress. Well, that's nice. It's too bad he's not like the president of the United States. Kentucky elected official says his friend was a victim of the shooting. No, I understand. As a collective, we are less safe, but I think as an equalizer, I value a gun much more, especially for women. A woman's best form of self-protection is with a gun against a male. So, okay, let me finish this. I do wish for restrictions on violent criminals having guns and fair background checks upon purchase and transfers, but I don't like the idea of an all-out ban or banning specific guns and guns parts. Okay, so yeah, so we're mostly, basically I value individuals. Yeah, okay. So we mostly agree. Like, we're probably at 90% agreement then. I probably have a few specific guns or parts that I would probably do bans on, but not bans. Like, I would restrict that to you know, if you go to like a range can have whatever the fuck they want. You can go to a range, have fun, shoot whatever the fuck you want. Private ownership of certain parts of certain, I think, tiers of weapons, I think might be a decent idea. But yeah, I don't support a ban at all. Bans are not really realistic in modern American society. But we do need restriction laws, which most gun owners believe in restriction, in tighter restrictions in general. But the woman thing, I would suggest you look into that. All the data that I've ever seen shows that women actually are less safe when like owning firearms, because an attacker, especially if they're a male, are usually able to wrestle their gun away from them and then kill them in a scenario where they would have probably been assaulted, but probably wouldn't have been shot to death. I haven't looked up any that specific frame in a while, but I remember that conversation a couple years ago, or at least like throughout time. And generally the agreement is, if you have a gun, if you're a woman, there is a chance that you could use it against an attacker, but you're at a higher percentage of dying from getting that gun wrestled from you. AR-15 to me isn't inherently worse than a pistol. The stats clear that out, and the damage of the gun isn't too much of a difference as well. Well, I think if we're talking so the thing with AR-15s is they're platforms, right? So the problem lies mostly in the caliber, I think. Because an AR-15 can shoot 9mm rounds, so we're not really, and usually at a higher velocity, as far as I understand. So the difference between AR-15s and pistols are usually concealability. It's why you see a lot of shootings, a lot of, I think, normal, not planned mass shootings done with pistols, because they're easier to enter buildings and kind of sneak your way onto premises and then commit your act of violence. Whereas ARs are generally used more for indiscriminate violence in terms of mass shootings. But yeah, the only difference is the difference there is the caliber, not necessarily the actual firearm. Because an AR-15 can, if you have a pistol caliber one, then you can obviously shoot 9mm out of an AR-15 platform. That is, there's a lot of the way that they're constructed is a big part of it. Let's see. Heart goes out to the family. Saddened. Da 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 da. Okay, whatever. Headed to the scene. Okay, I think these are all. This is the 146 mass shooting this year. How many days have we had so far in the year? I don't think. God, yeah. How many? Because what is it? 30. We're at 31. 28. God, I'm bad at math. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we've had more mass shootings than we have had days of the year at this point. There have been more mass shootings. God damn it, why didn't I just read? There have been more mass shootings than days so far in 2023. 146 of them, according to Gun Violence Archive, a database that relies on a mix of 7,500 government and media sources to track violence across the country. The GVA defines a mass shooting as an incident with a minimum of 4 victims shot, either injured or killed, not including the shooter. There have been at least 15 mass shootings in the U.S. in just the first 10 days of April. Jesus. In the last month alone, NPR reported on a shooting at a Denver high school and the death of 6 people. What the fuck? Wait, when was this? Oh, wait, I think I remember this. What is this? Local authorities Wednesday night near a vehicle. Oh, wait, I never heard about this one. Probably did, well, mainly because it didn't make that much news. Local authorities said a body was found Wednesday night near a vehicle. 17-year-old student was accused of shooting. Two administrators. Okay, no, I do remember this. Okay. That's that one. Okay. Including 3 9-year-olds at a shooting in Nashville. Okay. In total, more than 11,500 people have been killed by guns in the last 4 months alone. Jesus. Muhammad Ali Center. Just a few blocks from the shooting calls for the country to do what is right. McConnell says he is devastated. Senate Republican and Laney are devastated about the news coming from Louisville. Thank you, LMPD, for the first responder bravely at the scene. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, how are the families of those officers gonna feel? Fucking send out prayers, victims, families. Elaine and I are devastated. Don't care. Okay. Let's see. The thing about general safety is that it's very rare for those first token of attack or an intruder to be accurately reported. Because this, we have no true idea what the preventative effects guns have. So it's really hard to say. Both sides have widely disproportionate claims. Not specifically. Yeah, I think there's like an argument. There's an argument from, I think, people who are they're just anti-gun. They want none of it in our society. And there is an argument that less guns in a society will lead inevitably to a lot less of these kinds of deaths. A good example of this is Japan. The gun laws in Japan are incredibly strict, and ownership in Japan, from what I've seen, is really, 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 really low. And you just don't see this kind of stuff. And it is true that would a ban probably, would an outright ban reduce gun violence to a pretty large amount? Yes, I think it would. Do I think it would stop all of it? No, it will never do that. We have a lot of guns in the country that are unregistered, that are all over the place. Unfortunately, that's a solution that, yes, would give us the best results, but it's unrealistic. It will never happen. It can never happen. So it's not really worth the whole, oh, do we ban, do we not? There is none of that. It's not possible to ban all guns or any of that in the United States. What we can do is just add restrictions, make it a little bit more safe for people, one could say, you know, a little bit more, not safe, restrictive for people to acquire firearms. I think also in a hasty fashion. You know, you see a lot of, I remember growing up, we had wait times, and I feel like that was an effective way to kind of give people time instead of rashly going out, buying a firearm, committing violence with it. I do think the waiting periods did stem a little bit of that. I don't, we can't know for sure. But you know, it's just, there's a lot to balance. There's a lot of balancing that has to go on. Reported because, okay, let's say. Also, the way that they report mass shootings is also a little disingenuous. They include gang violence, but when people say mass shooting, they don't intuitively think about gang violence. I mean, that's true, but I would still call that mass shooting. I think it's because I think they just define it by if it's 4 more people injured or killed. So they don't want to include gang violence, which I think there's an element to that should be, you know, there should be an attributable percentage of that. You know, where it's like, oh, there's been, what did that number say? 11,500. 11,500 killed by guns. I mean, granted that we're, you know, and I'm sure there is a, you know, this percentage of those because of gang violence or whatever, but I would also want to see how many of those are domestic, how many of those are, the vast majority we know are going to be suicides also. Mass shootings are just the really public, you know, the very public, the very newsworthy, and the very, you know, front page news, you know, attention grabbing headline stuff that people tend to focus on. You know, mass shootings are not causing 11,500 deaths, but there are still 11,500 people that are dying by suicide, by gang violence, by some of these mass shootings, by domestic disputes, by all of this stuff. Overall, this is the cost we're paying. As of April, we are paying 11,500 people's lives for the very open ability to own firearms. You know, there's, like I said, there's just a balance. I guess my thing when it comes to guns is, and I really appreciate you being in here, Zazie, because you're actually making solid points, and I appreciate that you're not just coming in here to be like, herder liberal wants to ban guns, because I don't. I own firearms. I like going to the range. I like shooting. I think guns are cool. I play Call of Duty. But there's just there's a balance that we have to do, that we have to make when it comes to people's safety in our society and the ownership of guns. And I honestly think most gun owners aren't really that similar to 2A activists. I think 2A activists are well out of step with most gun owners. Most gun owners are not Republicans. I think the plurality is actually independents, who get them for their own reasons. Some of them defense, some of them, you know, they like to go to the range, some of them, whatever the reasons. But regardless, all of them kind of agree that, yeah, this shouldn't be that easy. There should be barriers to this, the same way there's barriers to owning and operating a vehicle. Vehicles cause a huge amount of deaths over the course of a year due to accidents, and we've understood that that's the trade that we as a society, I think, have accepted as, like, I think the number is like 50,000 people die is the one that Charlie Kirk quoted, is there's 50,000 vehicle deaths every single year. Which means driving cars, everybody driving cars, costs us 50,000 people every single year. Now, is that worth it? Most people would say, well, yeah, if we all ran everywhere, that wouldn't really be, our cities aren't planned for that. Our societies aren't built and structured to accommodate that. They're built and structured to accommodate cars. So it's more of something where I think we have made that trade, and we have decided, yeah, this is the trade that we're willing to make for cars. Now, would I like less cars on the road? Sure. I want more public transit. I'm a leftist. But, you know, that's kind of being able to get around is pretty fundamental to living, to being able to do anything. Whereas owning firearms is, I think, just a little bit less, what's even the word? I think it's less of a universal need for everybody, and more like a situational need, I suppose. But shooter was a bank employee. No, there was one more thing I wanted to read. Oh yeah, wait, I think I just read the numbers. Any more interesting? 8 victims. Okay, these are all just the updates. Okay, they do have a proportional amount of violent crime to us though. You're treating a gun problem with a different crime than violent crimes, such as knives and assaults potentially. Yeah, so that's also the thing. They do have, that might be true that there's more stabbings and assaults, but lives lost, stabbings, like, you just can't go on mass stabbings. I guess if you're, living in, Whitechapel, England in like the 1800s, you can go on mass stabbings. But, in the modern day, it's really hard to get away with a mass stabbing with how many people have phones and cameras and can film you. And you got to run up to everybody, go spawn in GTA, pull the knife and see how long you last compared to, the rocket launcher or any of the rest of the stuff. But I know I'm making a lot of video game references. That's just, I won't apologize for that. But anyway, yeah, the gun stuff, it's just, we need a balance. That's my thing. I hate when the argument just evolves into just I don't even want to say name calling. It's not even name calling. It's people being disingenuous about what the real trades are and what's this witness described. Let's take a look.
He just started. He had a long assault rifle, and he just started. You hear that click, and the lady next to me turned around and said, "What the hell?" And then he just started shooting.
Describe that again. Everything that you saw.
He just started. He had a long assault rifle, and he just started. You hear the shots just start firing.
What did he look like?
I didn't see his face.
Were you in a meeting?
Yeah, we were in the back conference room. Whoever's next to me got shot and hit blood from me
Jesus
from it.
Christ.
Yeah, I was in the elevator. I just walked right past the conference room where.
And again, even if any of these people had guns at the time, you don't have time to respond. You just don't.
Who took upon themselves and not wait to assess everything.
No, I don't care. No, I don't care about this. Why is crypto in here? Multiple casualties.
See a broke man and he come towards you, what do?
Run.
Thing.
Yeah, you get the.
If you see a man that got a family and he trying to talk to you, what do?
What's going on? Yeah.
Little kids lost their lives. I believe 3 adults, and the shooter, of course, lost their life too. So it's a horrible, horrible situation, and we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals, and my daddy fought in the Second World War, fought in the Pacific, fought the Japanese, and he told me, he said, buddy, he said, if somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it.
He was fighting in war, you fucking idiot. Jesus. Imagine approaching civil society with the same mindset of somebody in World War II Japan. Honest to God. That's why idiots like this are so okay with saying we're not going to fix anything, that we're not going to do anything, because in their mind, they're like, what, fucking World War II, battlefields might as well be the U.S. Fucking A. Do you think maybe there's another option for regular people walking around?
All these groups of people, should the NSA, FBI, CIA, all these groups of people do a backdoor to your computers and check to see if you're trying to do a
my FBI guy
mass shooting. So we can sit there and if someone is trying to do a mass shooting, because usually they would tell one of their friends that they're going to do it and they won't be around anymore. Usually that would happen. I mean, really, wouldn't that be the simplest way instead of trying to do a more of a, what do you call it, take more of a gun control, or say take guns away from us?
Well, that's so I understand what I understand what he's saying. He's saying, well, look, why doesn't the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, all these departments, why don't they start looking for some of these people to prevent some of these crimes or whatever? So here's the problem with that. We all know that we are being spied on every moment of our lives, right? Right now, there is an FBI officer that's that's reading what you're texting, or at the very least has the ability to read what you text, see what you watch, hear how you react to things. And we have that kind of mass surveillance already, already kind of built into our society now. I feel like people have just kind of gotten used to the mass surveillance of citizens, including themselves. And the idea that we would then ask them, hey, can you keep an eye out specifically? Like have an edict, a mandate to look out for mass shooters. You know what that's honest to God going to result in? It's going to result in disproportionate enforcement of that information, of like any of those preventative actions. If you're a regular citizen that wants to own a firearm, you get spied on to make sure that your firearm usage is good. This would just open the door for even more government spying on you. And I would think that people who are appreciative, or at the very least supportive of looser gun laws and more interested in that opposition to the government, right? This would give them an immense ability to spy on you. If you don't even think about joining a militia, don't ever attempt to arm yourself from violence, because that might get interpreted incorrectly by an agent. It's just, this is asking for more surveillance by the government, not less. This will, while maybe make us more safe, because there's an argument that the Patriot Act made us more safe, but the cost is always our own personal freedom and our personal privacy. If you're willing to give up more of that so that you can keep your guns, that's a fine. If you want to make that trade, that's fine, but be aware of what that trade is. Yeah, it's just update, no active shooter, 5 dead, 6 wounded. Okay, I don't know how much more. Oh my God, what is this? What is this? I'm in the mass shooting thing, and I'm getting fucking crypto bullshit. God damn, Twitter. Golly. Okay. White Sox at Twins. God, the idea. Oh, Jesus. Anyway. Okay. Let's shift gears, I guess, to something a little bit more fun. So, Minecraft, or at the very least a Minecraft server, just cost us some documents here on Ukraine and stuff. So let's go take a look. The Hill has a video on it. We'll watch that, because me reading articles just always feels really dry, and it's a bit dry to me too. So.
Just in, classified war documents detailing secret American and NATO plans for building up the Ukrainian military ahead of a planned offensive against Russian troops.
Wait, I'm gonna go grab water 1 second. Actually, here, we'll put the BRB thing. Just have fun. Okay. I just wanted to grab by. That's all.
Were posted this week on social media channels. This is according to senior Biden administration officials via the New York Times. The Pentagon is investigating who may have been behind the leak of the documents, which appeared on Twitter and on Telegram.
The Times reports that military analysts said the documents appear to have been modified in certain parts from their original format, overstating American estimates of Ukrainian war dead and underestimating estimates of Russian troops killed. George Beebe, the director of Grand Strategy at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft, joins us now to discuss. Welcome, George.
Thank you.
You're a former director of the CIA's Russian analysis. So what do you make of all of this? What's new in these documents? And what do you make of the discrepancy between the documents and then military analysts who say that the numbers of dead on each side were changed?
Well, we can't take for granted that these are authentic, first of all. There's a possibility that these are forgeries, things that were concocted essentially as psychological operations to influence the thinking of one side or another.
Grand Strategy, Quincy Institute.
It's possible that that concoction came from the American side. Possible it came from the Russian side. That said, it appears, if we can believe press reporting, that the U.S. government is treating this as if these were leaks. Leaks that were altered, as you pointed out, but which contain some genuine information. And the fact that much of the information in this document is not very flattering to the Ukrainian side suggests that this is something that is
well,
quite
isn't
probably.
It kind of? Yeah, because you could, God, when it comes to stuff like this, you could make that argument for it. It's like, oh, well, you know, they leak them purposefully so that they could pretend, but they're fake leaks, and then they say that they're fake leaks, but they treat them like they're real leaks because they want us to think that they're a real leak, but actually they're a fake leak. And most people think that, oh, well, actually it's a fake leak. The entire thing is a huge fake leak for a real leak that happened somewhere. Like,
authentic.
God.
You said, you know, if we can trust reporting, there have been accusations that the New York Times, legacy media in particular, has been too credulous in accepting State Department
1080p, please.
Talking points, printing
Can I get my
stories
Brown Joy Gray in
about
HD
the theories
instead of
who
fucking
perpetrated
360?
the Nord Stream sabotage that are convenient to the interests of the U.S. and its allies.
Oh yeah, didn't Nord Stream
Can you
get blown
talk
up?
through a little bit why people might be
I didn't really pay attention to that,
skeptical
but
of this story, who it seems
I'll be honest, I
to be
didn't really
helping?
care that much when I heard.
Well, the picture that it presents overall is one of a Ukrainian counteroffensive force that doesn't look particularly overwhelming, not particularly well trained. You know, training levels described in this document, which is about a month out of date, by the way. This was beginning of March when this document supposedly was created. But the training levels that are described in this document don't look particularly impressive. The amount of equipment that the Ukrainians are scraping together, again, does not look particularly impressive. And the amount of artillery that they are firing and bringing to bear, again, quite underwhelming. So one potential hypothesis here is that this was designed to get the Russians
Okay, I need y'all to be a little bit more brisk with these points.
to let their guard down. To think that the Ukrainians are not going to be coming at them with big numbers and overwhelming force. And that's possible, but I think if you were really trying to throw the Russians off, you would want to include some things that would include where and when the Ukrainians might be attacking. That would be the ultimate aim of this kind of deception. So my guess is that that's not actually what's going on here. My guess is that at least parts of this were actually genuine.
To the extent that they are genuine, and if they are, as you mentioned, this is basically a snapshot in time, right? This is March 1. To what extent do you think that any of these things that you're mentioning about preparation
all leaks
levels,
are fake and real,
the numbers that we're not sure,
and real about
who's
being
lying
fake,
about which
all at the same
side
time.
dead on each side? To what extent, basically, what has changed between March 1 and now, if anything significant in your estimation?
Also, if you're telling me the Ukrainian forces are actually not that well trained and not, you know, they don't have an army of John Wicks out there, then man, Russia's getting fucking embarrassed then.
Well, I think the training has certainly improved over the course of the past month. That's something that time helps. You're going to be able run more troops through your training programs during that period. And certainly more deliveries are going to be occurring to the Ukrainians over time.
Makes
so those
sense,
numbers
makes
are going to
sense.
look slightly better. But the gap between what they look like a month ago and what the Ukrainians would really need to have high confidence of success in a counteroffensive is quite large. Generally, the rule of thumb when you're on offense is you need overwhelming numerical advantages over the side that's playing defense. And this
I love how
document
casual
indicates that the
Zelensky
Ukrainians
always
are nowhere
looks.
close to that. That doesn't mean that they
He's
may
got his
not,
hoodie.
with
He's
intelligence
wearing
and some
some
deception, be able to surprise the
fucking-
Russians in some areas
fucking
and
sweats.
bring a concentration of force that gives them an advantage. But I think it does mean that the odds of Ukrainian success in a counteroffensive are not such that we can be highly confident that they're going to achieve a breakthrough.
Do you think the strategic disadvantage that Ukraine is at, based on these documents, will be used to lobby for more U.S. funding to Ukraine?
Well, they've already been doing that. They've been lobbying for U.S. funding
I mean,
now
they've
for many,
been-
many months.
Yeah, I mean, they've been asking
the problem,
for-
I think, is not so much a willingness, but a capacity. What the Ukrainians need is a lot more ammunition and a lot more training and a lot more manpower. Those are things that you can't remedy very quickly. NATO can't.
Okay. So I haven't kept up with the war front as well as I probably should. But if anybody is familiar, how poorly is it going for Ukraine? Because I can't remember the last time I heard bad news for Ukraine. I feel like at least stateside, the conversation has almost completely been taken up now about how much we fund and how much we send them, and is it worth their victory, I guess. I haven't, like, I can't remember the last time I heard any big, oh, this got taken, that got lost, this got taken sort of trades in the actual war front. As far as I'm aware, they're doing fine, especially considering much smaller country, much smaller force, but
can't provide manpower in significant numbers to Ukraine, particularly because the United States has said we're not going to put boots on the ground. We're not going to risk what Biden calls World War III in all of this.
If I like
You
DM
can only
Dylan
train
Burns,
so
will you
many
tell me
people,
how it's going?
a given period of time. And the ammunition stockpiles that the American side has been providing to the Ukrainians are dwindling. And we don't have the defense industrial capacity to ramp up that production very fast.
We don't?
So there are real constraints on what we can do.
So do you think that this indicates that
God
this
damn it,
war,
we're the US.
is
We can
likely
make
to
bullets
continue
at the
for
snap
many
of a
months
finger?
or even years after this? In other words, we had this Russian offensive that has also stalled out, right? Is this going to become a war of attrition dependent on how much, for example, ammunition and other supplies the United States and European countries are willing to send to the Ukrainian side, and then the Russians essentially running out of their own critical material?
I mean,
and
that
then
is
on
kind
their
of the
side?
plan, yeah.
Is this going to turn into a very long war of attrition?
Basically.
Well, I think it already is a war
Yeah.
of attrition, and unfortunately, I think that's a war that favors the Russians over time. They have a much larger population. They have a much bigger defense industrial base. The question is, can Putin sustain this politically over time? And right now, it looks like he can. Now, can't be confident that he can sustain that for years on end, but it doesn't look like the Russians are yet at a point where they feel compelled to say uncle in all of this and sue for peace. So my guess is we're going to be in a war of attrition for quite some time until both sides realize they need to compromise.
George Eby, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We'll have more Rising right after this.
All right, let's see how much. Okay, I don't know if I'm gonna trust this source, but I am kind of. When was this? Last year. The problem is we can't really. 80% of respondents do support the military, but that group is by no means a monolith. He says about 50% have definite support without any qualms, but the other 30% have support of reservations. Yeah, I just don't know what the support for the war is in Russia, because we've seen videos of people refusing to refusing to be drafted, basically. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I don't know. And it's hard to get polling out of Russia since it's not exactly the most free state in the world. U.S. in crisis mode after allies with allies. Da, 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 da. I just kind of want to read this, see if there's any extra information. Senior U.S. officials are racing to placate frustrated and confused allies from the Europe to the Middle East to Kiev, following the leak of highly classified information. After the news broke last week, senior state officials, counterpoints to quell worries about the publishing of the intel, according to the 4 officials, an American, 2 European, and a Five Eyes member familiar with the conversation. Members of the Five Eyes intelligence consortium of the U.S., Canada, have asked for briefings. Meanwhile, officials in London, Brussels, Ukraine has long worried about information it shares with the U.S. spilling out into the open. This case showed that the Ukrainians have been absolutely right about that. Americans now owe the Ukrainians. They have to apologize and compensate. Ooh, apologize and compensate, you say? The saga has left the U.S. relations with the Allies in the state of a crisis, raising questions about Washington's will correct the officials. Let's see, WikiLeaks dumped sensitive documents online from 2006 to 2021. This distress over the leak particularly problematic because the majority of documents focused on the war in Ukraine and effort. The manner of the leak and the contents are very unusual. I can't remember a time when there was this volume of a leak, this broad in the subject matter of authentic information just put on social media rather than say it's known files. Okay, Politico's review of the document showed some that appear to have been assembled into a briefing packet by Joint Staff's intelligence arm known as J2, with summaries of global matters pulled from various U.S. intelligence systems. Some of the documents contain markings in the corners that correspond with specific wires with information that appears to be compiled in summary form, a practice often used by individuals used inside the government to prepare briefing packets. The U.S. Pentagon focus on assessing impact these photograph documents could have on the U.S. national security and our allies and partners. It's unclear. I have no idea what the plan is. Another senior official said, "I'd like to know myself how we're going to handle it." That's so far. Let's say. Very important to remember in recent decades, most successful operations of the Russian special forces have been carried out in Photoshop. Andrei Yusuf, a representative of the Ukrainian Defense Intelligence main directorate, said on Friday, adding that a preliminary analysis of the document showed distorted figures on losses suffered by the Russian Ukraine. Okay. Interesting. Okay, we'll kind of see how this plays out. Look, when it comes to the war between Russia and Ukraine, we should absolutely be supporting our democratic partners in Ukraine. And if that happens to hurt Russia, then, at any point they can stop the stop the bleeding by getting the fuck out. I'm also not a big fan of fascist dictatorships, so there's also that. CNN anchor challenges. Ooh, wait. Ooh, is this? Ooh, okay. Wait. Okay. This person showed up on CNN. No, CNN. I feel like it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be harder. I'm gonna get demonetized or something, or they're gonna fucking copyright claim it. Okay, no, we'll do this. Okay, so we talked about the PSYOP. Now I want to talk about another PSYOP, which is the identity of pro-life. Pro-life as a movement is pretty much a lie. It is anti-choice. They can say that they're personally anti-abortion. I would actually argue probably a plurality, if not a majority of people are anti-abortion. But nonetheless, it's a health care and a pregnancy procedure that helps people when they need help. If sometimes that means bailing out of a pregnancy, that means bailing out of a pregnancy. If they're not ready, whatever it might be. At the end of the day, I believe abortion sucks as is it fun for anybody? Fuck no. Does anybody want to have to go through any of that? Also fuck no. But is it kind of something people need to have access to, something women, necessarily to essentially give them the agency that all people should have over their bodies. Yeah. Because if you think about it, I kind of think about it like this. Look, if you're a guy, right? If you're a guy, you get a girl pregnant, regardless of whether abortion exists or doesn't exist, you can fuck right off. You can fuck right off. You cannot give a shit. You will face no repercussions, no consequences, right? That is something that men can do. For a long time, women had no ability to, and no recourse to make that same decision, or at the very least to be as free of consequences as men were, right? If you're a woman, you got pregnant, you didn't want to get pregnant. The same way men didn't want to have children. They could just fuck off, not be in the kids' lives. Women for a long time didn't have that choice. They had to carry that baby. They had to have that baby and deal with the consequences of that. But when we developed, abortion broadly, and including, pills, procedures, all the rest of that stuff, it gave women the ability to not be saddled with children that men didn't want to raise, or that they didn't want to raise, for that matter. Abortion and the I guess social acceptance for abortion kind of just came out of an obvious equalization of opportunity for women. If you're an 18-year-old man and you get an 18-year-old woman pregnant, guess what? You, as the man, get to go out, have a career, be successful. You can not think twice about that baby. It's not really your problem. Whereas before, a woman would be kind of stuck with that. Now she can't go get jobs. She can't go be successful. It was very much on a, if not objective standpoint, at the very least, just the reality that getting pregnant is going to hinder your ability to work and kind of make it in this capitalist system that we live under. Now, this wasn't a problem, or at the very least, this wasn't as much of a problem during the time in which one income could carry a household. We all are told about the magical time when dad went to work in the factory, went to work in the office, and mom stayed home, had the kids, and raised them. And for a while, that was the ideal. Everyone was taken care of. The women got to, they had kids, their needs were taken care of. The men went out and did all their stuff. Their needs were taken care of. There was some kind of, at least conceptual, equal, or at the very least, positive outcome that everybody could participate in. These days, unfortunately, with the advent of two incomes in the household being a necessity for most families, women who are left on their own with those kids tend to kind of be, and I'm using a scientific term here, you'll forgive me, fucked. They just were, unfortunately. And the pro-abortion side, which I don't really think is a side, there are not people, or at the very least, if there are, they're an incredibly small, and I mean small, amount of people that, for whatever reason, would be pro-abortion, are like, ooh, you got pregnant, time to do it. Oh, can't wait for the abortion day, can't wait. Nobody, it's not really a thing. The same way you don't, you break your arm, or, you throw your shoulder out. You can't wait to have that replaced or set back in. It's not really fun for anybody involved. And it's why the opposite of pro-life is pro-choice. It's the laissez-faire, look, it's not my choice to make. Some people will not want to abort any of their children because they believe that life starts at conception, and those people have a right to make that decision. But there are people who don't believe that and would like to be able to live full lives, and the pro-choice position is to let the people who want to live full lives and not be mothers yet live those lives, and the people who do want to be mothers, and that's their goal, to do that too. Everybody can be happy for their own personal life. And it's why I say the pro-life movement, in such that its name, is a lie. It's bullshit. It's marketing. It's disingenuous. It's bullshit. It's bullshit. To which we're going to take a look at a pretty, at the very least, I've been noticing she comes up in my feed a little bit more often. I've seen her a little bit more. Is Kristen Hawkins, a anti-abortion, and let's make that very clear. She's anti-abortion. She is anti-giving the women the choice to make the decision, whichever decision fits their life better. That's what she is. She'll say she's anti-abortion. She's not. She's anti-choice when it comes down to it, because the lack of an abortion is the lack of having a choice to either raise that child or bring that pregnancy to term or not. There is no alternative in her world. So either way, frequently she puts out videos where, in this one, she allegedly crushes the pro-choice logic. So as somebody who is pro-choice and also anti-abortion, I'm much more favorable towards adoption, but it's not really my call. It's not my pregnancy. Let's go take a look. Let's go watch some college liberal get owned.
Great questions, by the way. Great job.
So I came here to kind of hear your side. I mean, it was not a full yay, I'm excited to hear someone try to take away my rights as a woman, but it was more I wanted to hear what you had to say, and I agree with one thing I can name, which is increasing parent paternity leave or whatever. So, or maternity or whatever it is. And so one
maternity.
thing I just want to say to the audience
is maternity is the leave that men take. Paternity is the leave that women take. Oh wait, no, is that the opposite? That's the opposite. I'm stupid. Maternity leave is the leave women take. Paternity leave is the one the men take. Don't listen to me. I'm stupid. Actually, no. Listen to me and subscribe and follow.
If I came here with no knowledge on abortion, you would have convinced me because of all your fear tactics and all of your let's bring out the gore. Let's talk about killing babies with a closure. Oh, it was gory though. So what I wanted to say though was I encourage everyone in this audience to actually realize what it means to have bodily autonomy, to be pro-choice, which is not pro-abortion. It's pro-choose. No, yeah, I'm getting that. It's pro-choosing the right to have an abortion if you feel that's necessary. So I want to ask the question, what makes you qualified to tell everyone here that abortion is so bad and it should be illegal when in reality, are you a scientist? Are you an OBGYN? Do you have any kind of degree that makes it so we should be listening to you because you're, oh my gosh, you're this figure that is so correct on all these issues. I want to hear what you have to say about your background that makes this. Yeah.
Well, it's actually simple.
So I like this. I like this off the bat because if you know who Kristen Hawkins is, she is not a scientist. She is not she's not a biologist. She's not an OBGYN. She's not any of this. If I remember correctly, and let's, I don't think I need to, well, no, let's confirm here so I can make sure. Yep. Grassroots. Yep. Public speaking, organized. Yeah. She's let's see. Come on. Hit me with it. Christian wife. Who cares? Mother. Who cares? Grassroots activist. Who cares? Author, speaker, podcast host, human rights advocate. So basically she has no scientific or even philosophical background on this topic. It's just she just has an opinion, which is fine. I am not a scholar. I'm not any of these things, but I'm also arguing for people to talk with a doctor and make their own decision. She is coming at this from I've made the decision for you. You're going to carry this pregnancy to term. That's how it is. It starts and stops at that. Without having any background in any of this, which should tell you a little bit about the way she approaches that. But let's see how honest she is about that. But I do like this because nobody in this crowd who might be in favor of Kristen here it can argue, oh well, yeah, she's not a doctor, yeah, she's not an OBGYN, yeah, she really just went to school for public speaking and marketing and stuff like that, so she's in this to make money. Might have something to do with the might be grifting, but we're not sure quite yet. But either way, good question. What gives you the right to make that decision for people based on your own beliefs, which she's not going to have an answer to, I predict. It's mostly going to be, well, this is my opinion, and I think my opinion's more right than yours, which is still not really a explanation of why you should be determining the rights for people. But anyway, let's see her answer.
Because abortion is a black and white issue. You don't have to be an OBGYN. You don't have to be a doctor. You don't have to be a scientist to read biology books and to Google when human life begins and to know innately that all human life is equally valuable. And when you start to disregard certain human beings because they're inconvenient to you, or you see them as your property, disastrous results we've seen throughout human history.
Though, as a counter to that, I wanted to say I noticed a lot of your sources you seem to Google, so that kind of goes into my topic of like what makes you qualified to talk about this if you Googled it.
I say
like, everything on the news is accurate.
All of my sources.
Let me be clear also. Citing sources, getting your information from Google and finding sources for your arguments is not inherently bad. Not all of us can be science, scholarly, scientific people on every topic. But there is a certain amount of, what's the word I'm looking for? Professional, and I think, what's the word I'm looking for? Deference one should be paying to the actual people doing the studies, studying any of this stuff, coming to understandings, and understand also a part of this. Also keep in mind is abortion is not the science of abortions is rather clear and pretty concrete at this point. We don't have a lot of gray zones the way we used to when it comes to abortion. What we are discussing these days are the rights to technology that is making people's lives better and easier and more amenable to their liking. It's the same with it's kind of the same with the trans issue, right? If you are 25, if you're an adult, you understand why conservatives, Matt Walsh, all the like, focus on minors as trans kids, because there are barriers that we put in front of minors when it comes to participating fully in their own autonomy, right? Whereas if you're an adult, if you want, and I think, and I said this to somebody recently in the comments on the YouTube video, which is a channel you should totally subscribe to. I said this recently, where if you're an adult, I don't care if you're trans, if you're not trans, if you're non-binary, I don't care what the fuck you are. If you want a vagina made out of your dick and you're an adult, you have all the fucking right to do so. You shouldn't need a diagnosis. You shouldn't need a permission from the state. You're an adult. You get to do what you want, plain and simple. If you would like to if you want to get a nose job, you don't have to ask for permission for a nose job. If you want to get a boob job, you shouldn't have to ask for permission to anything. These things are cosmetic, and if you want to change how you look cosmetically, I think that you don't need to answer for any of this. You don't need a diagnosis. You need any of this stuff. As an adult, you get to say how your body gets changed or whatever. That's your choice. We've decided that in a society, you get that choice. And I think that's pretty much the same when it comes to abortion. And how we decide these things aren't always based on science, but we have to be honest about the science so that we can have an honest conversation about the rights and how we distribute those rights. And the problem that a lot of people have with a lot of abortion activists is they play very fast and loose with the science half of it to underpin and to reinforce their social argument, when the science has almost never backed up any of their arguments on the social side. These are two very different conversations, I think. The science is settled on abortion. Now the question becomes, how do we, now that this exists, how do we distribute this to people?
Are Googleable, because you don't trust what I have to say. So when I talk about, that's Huffington Post, go to Huffington Post. Google who has better sex. Marry people who are religious. If you want to know the medical studies,
who cares? No, seriously, who cares? What does that have to do with A, abortion? What does that have to do with B, freedom? If you tell me if someone came up to you and said, you're going to be Christian now, you're going to church every Sunday, your sex is going to be better, thank me later. That's not how this works. That's not how this works at all.
What I cited? Go to pubnet.gov. They're there. If you want to know what a fetus is, go to Google. Because
also, you're telling me that married couples have better sex than just people who fuck random people on the weekends? Whoa. Fucking shocker there.
Dictionary.com pops right up and tells you a fetus is a human being and a member of our species. But it's actually very simple in the pro-life movement. Because what is abortion? What does it do? What does abortion do, ma'am?
It allows women to have the right to choose to move on with their lives and not have to
what happens during an abortion?
Have a baby.
What happens during an abortion?
A clump of cells is taken out of the woman's body.
Does a clump of cells have a beating heart?
Well, I'm not a scientist, so honestly, what I will say...
You can Google it!
Yeah, okay, so everything on the internet...
Wait. Okay, this is when you should be asking, does a clump of cells have a beating heart? Because a heart, understand, a heart is an organ. Meaning you have to have a lot more than a clump of cells. You know what a clump of cells is? Actually, no, these aren't cells. If I scratch your arm, those are clumps of cells. You have cells on your arm. All over, all of this is just random cells. Not random necessarily, but that having a heartbeat a heart is an organ. And they can say okay, it has a heartbeat. Who gives a shit? Do you know what a heart is? It's a fucking muscle. The heart is a muscle that pumps blood throughout a living organism system. So what? People live without functional hearts. There are ways that we can get around that. There are humans right now who don't have functional hearts, who have mechanical the versions of those essentially. So what, are those not human now? Is a heart the thing that distinguishes a human? No. The animals have hearts. It's just an organ. It's an organ that pumps blood. What does that have to do with anything? But you see, for her, as she does her cackling Gruntilda laugh, the argument for her is if you have a heart, you have a soul. But souls aren't real, man. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. We also don't base our society based on souls. It's just not a thing. We don't say you killed a person's soul. We say you just killed a person. You ceased their life.
Internet is correct. I'm confused as to this is sarcasm, by the way.
Ask any abortionist. Ask any abortionist.
Okay.
Ask any abortionist if the fetus they dismembered or they sucked out of existence or they induced a heart attack had a beating heart. They will tell you yes.
Okay, but did they have a conscience? Did they have a mental?
Who cares?
Brain
Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? Who cares? So this is the problem. Okay. So this is the thing. You are having an argument on her ground because you're not having her explain at what point are you referring to. I think I brought this chart up last time. Let's see. What is it? What did I type in? I think it was the fetal development chart. All right, cool. This is way too small. God damn it. Now I have to do that again. What if we just do fetal development and not do chart? Can I just get a picture? Thank you. Oh, this is the one that I had last time. Ah, lovely. I love it. This one was really good. All right. So let's remember, she is talking about a heart, right? Let's go back really quick.
Confused as to this is
because want to know what a fetus is? Go to Google because dictionary.com pops right up and tells you a fetus is a human being and a member of our species. But it's actually very
Everything
simple
is
in the
good.
pro-life movement.
It's always great down
what
here.
What is abortion? What does it do? What does abortion do, ma'am?
Also, how'd you know I was short?
Have the right to choose to move on with their lives and not have
Did you
to
just get that energy
have a
from
baby.
me?
What happens during an abortion?
A clump of cells is taken out of the woman's body.
So, a clump of cells. You want to know what she's referring to? This entire top row and this first one down here on the bottom left, right? That's what homegirl on the steps is referring to. She's referring to this little batch here. And what Kristen Hawkins is trying to reframe the argument for is everything over 40 weeks. Or past, I guess this would be maybe 10. I don't remember at what point the heart actually develops. I believe it's probably around 10. But either way, my point being, I don't know, the only thing I dislike about this chart is that it's kind of out of order, which is really weird. Is it supposed to be, what 5 weeks? Why is it from 5, 40, 20, 10? Why not do 5, 10? So weird. Such a weird chart. Okay, we go. Look out for our short people. I respect it. Short kings. Anyway. But yeah, like, all right, you have, yeah. My
Help us
point
out
here.
have a beating heart.
Well, I'm not a scientist.
Do any of these have beating
What I will
hearts?
say-
Do these have
Yeah,
beating
okay,
hearts?
so everything on the internet is correct. I'm confused as to, this is sarcasm, by the way.
Ask any abortionist. Ask any abortionist.
Okay.
Ask any abortionist.
Ask
if the
any
fetus
of
they
them.
dismembered, or they sucked out of existence, or they induced a heart attack, had a beat.
How do you dismember something? Most women don't know they're pregnant until usually around the, 6-week stage? So most women are like somewhere in between this alien looking thing on the far left and this other kind of cuter looking alien thing over here. And in between these two, somehow women are, that's like dismemberment. And again, keep in mind, she uses dismemberment because it's a loaded term and because you're supposed to think of like a Saw movie or the Hostel movies. But this isn't an honest representation. Talk to any abortionist and they're going to tell you, I don't know, it kind of varies. It depends on when the woman comes in. I've done abortions on babies that are almost fully developed, but they would have killed the mother. So it's kind of a spectrum.
Beating heart. They will tell you yes.
Okay, but did they have a conscience? Did they have a brain that was fully formed and
So
could make decisions?
So your position on abortion then is you're okay with abortion because of conscience. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm okay with abortion because women have the right to choose whether or not they want to have a baby.
So also we're getting away from the topic, which was, keep in mind, the initial question is what in your background gives you the right? What gives Kristen Hawkins the right? What background does she have of knowledge that makes her an authority on, and let's be honest about this, human rights? She can have whatever opinion she wants on biology, development, all of the rest of these things. But what gives her the right from a moral standpoint to determine the decisions that other people make? Every single day, we tell people, every time you stop at a red light, somebody made the moral decision that we are not all just going to drive everywhere all at once without structures to keep us organized. Somebody infringed on your right to travel somewhere as fast as you want to by way of a red light, right? And we've understood that society is just a little bit better if we all drove around in these dangerous ass cars in an organized and communicable fashion to everybody, right? And with abortion, again, regardless of what you think of the procedure, if you think it's dismemberment, whatever it is at the end of the day a procedure, a medical procedure that we have developed. Now the question becomes, do we let people use that technology? Is that something that we allow for? And what are the benefits of that? And what are the negatives of that decision? The benefits of allowing for abortion is that women now have agency over their body that men traditionally only had. Women now have an ability to not have their life stopped at the change of becoming pregnant and now having a child. That is now something that we can stop early on in the process, cause minimal damage to the mothers. The actual child isn't developed into a individual adult yet. They are still dependent on the mother for all processes. So the question then becomes, all right, like if that's the positive, what's the alternative to then taking that away? And it would be that women go back to not having an ability to make that decision on where they want their lives to go. And this is when people say, like, you're taking people's rights away, and some people go, oh, well, you don't have the right. Whoa. Women have had that right, and you are removing it. There is no reframing of that. It was a right, it's now not a right. So also keep that in mind. Life stop with all respect, what did you have to do? What did you have to do that was so much more important than growing up and raising a kid? Well, the process of child raising is so okay. So do you want to know the actual problem? I don't even need to address that part. Do you want to know the problem with that assertion? It's simply that there isn't anything more important to other people than raising children. It is a mindset that people are on this earth and the purpose of individuals are to procreate. Now, you have all the right in the world to believe that. I believe that you have the right to think that the most important thing you could ever do in your life is have and raise children. I got no problem with that. My issue is when that is the only, and that is the frame that we take in a legal sense, that we forward in a legal sense in our society. That's the problem I have with that. What is more important that you could not do after raising a child? That would be my question. Okay, can I ask you something, Miniature Blaze? Do you have children? Are you a parent by any chance? I plan to. I cannot biologically, no, but we plan to adopt. Okay, so I appreciate that. I'm a child of adoption. I'm very pro-adoption. So when you go through that process, first of all, the adoption process, I'm going to warn you ahead of time. Not a, what's the word? Not as easy of a process as one might think it is, and the adoption process can be rather ornery. But regardless of all of that, having and raising children, you will notice, talk to any parents, if you know any parents, talk to any of them. You're going to notice a distinct difference in the life that you're now going to be able to live. You're not going to get to go out. You're not going to get to sleep fully through the night. Say goodbye to any extra income you might have. That's now going to have to go to that child. Now, keep in mind also, income is very tight for a lot of people because of late stage capitalism and the stagnant wages that we live with. But regardless of all of that, that is now an extra mouth to feed. It is like when you try to make the decision, if you want a dog, right? You like having pets, you want to have a dog. There's an obvious investment of, okay, I want to have a dog. Well, we got to pay for the dog. There's the upfront costs of adopting a dog from a shelter, from anywhere else. Then you have to worry about the healthcare of that dog. Then you have to worry about the food of that dog, where they go, where they sleep, where they eat, where they shit, where they do everything else. Then if they get sick, you have to cover those expenses. These are all things that encompass having children and are even more intense with children. Talk to any parent. There are any number of things they now cannot do, some of them being professional, some of them being recreational, that are just not attainable and not performable as adults, or as parents, I should say. Sorry. It's a completely different way of living. It's kind of the same, maybe not a one-to-one, but if you've ever been dating somebody, and then the difference between dating somebody for a long period of time and marrying them, and the two differences that those in lie. When you're dating somebody, you are two individuals living together. You have your own, bank accounts, you have your own this, you have your own that. But when you're married, you become, and this is legally, in legal terms, and also I think from more of a social standpoint, you become one entity. You are now they can make decisions on your healthcare. You can make decisions on theirs. There's a lot that you file your taxes together. There's a lot of things. You are you are a different state of being when you get married. And the same goes for when you have children. Your life changes in so many different ways. And the problem is that some people are, like you, might be, they want that change. That's the change that they want in their life. But others don't. Some people either want to be more ready, which most parents will tell you you're never ready, but a lot of people would like to have more stable careers, more money coming in, so that they can offer those children actual meaningful benefits to being their children, basically. You want to have a good job, you want to have a nice house, you want to build up all this infrastructure, so when you have kids, you're like, I can give them a good life, right? But a lot of people, either they can't get abortions, or, maybe they live in a state where abortion is an option. Maybe they just accidentally got pregnant, or, any number of ways that this happens. And if they're not ready, the options are, if I bring this kid into this world right now, I can't offer them a better life. I just can't. I can't offer them better. They're not going to come into my life and be a part of it. They're going to join the fucking struggle with me. And a lot of people don't want that. A lot of people don't want that. My parents, so I'm adopted, and my parents got separated when I was rather young. And something that weighed heavily on my mother was the idea that she could never provide me with the nuclear family. It caused her an immense amount of distress and anxiety and depression for that. And, because of that, she would lash out. We've gotten along now as I'm an adult, and we've had more adult conversations. But these are, people want the best for their kids, and having a kid before you're ready means you can't give them that. And sure, somebody like Kristen Hawkins might say, that's not important, or, even a life of struggle is better. But honestly, think about this for yourself, for you personally. Do you want your kids to struggle? Do you want them to be hungry and destitute like you are? If you're a college kid living on ramen, you don't want to have a kid. You don't want that kid living with you living on ramen. It's just, and we need, and I'm pro-choice because I believe everybody knows what situation they're in. If they're ready, then they're ready. If they're not, then they're not. And as a pro-choice supporter, I believe we need to leave that to people to make that decision for them. And a one-size-fit-all, no, you're just going to have the baby, figure out adoption, do all the rest of this, is going to lead to more kids in the adoption system, and more people getting injured because they go to crazy means to actually get adoptions, or they have kids and those kids end up as a statistic in the starvation rate. So those are my big concerns. This is what I mean. I appreciate the follow, though. I do appreciate that. Let me actually respond to what you said. I know I went on a really long tangent. I mean, you never have enough money to have a child. There will be no stage in your life that I wish I had less money. And I said you kind of just have to have kids despite having money. And also, like, to back up to that, any parent will tell you it is worth it, but that is only in hindsight. And most of the time, that's very much a feels thing. That's not something that I think is concrete. Also, professional and recreational can both be done after a child, or is it likely not super important? I realize you can't, unless you still be during a child. But anyway, let's continue.
But do you agree that abortion kills a human being?
I don't agree that there's any kind of murder in the.
Does it end the life of a human being?
It ends the life of cells. It does not end the life of a Yeah, okay, so you're a clump of cells that has been developed over time, but once you leave the vagina, then you're a conscious human.
So you're okay with abortion. So if I'm pregnant, I'm 9 months pregnant, my husband leaves me, I lose my job, and I say, I can't have this baby right now. You're okay at 9 months before the baby leaves my vagina, the abortionist goes in, induces a heart attack, and kills that baby.
It's too bad we didn't have laws that were against that. See, this is why I really hate people like this, and I hate this woman with a deep venom, because she's just lying. Roe v. Wade and the laws that we've passed since its decision all ensured that late stage abortion was the only exception to that was generally the health of the mother, or if there were defects that would have resulted in negative outcomes for the child. Essentially saying we're not going to let kids come into the world if they're all, malformed and whatnot, if we don't have to. First of all, that's also an awful decision that parents have to make. But B, if it's going to lead to the death of the mother, then that's those parents' decision to either try again, hopefully this time without that danger, or risk the mother's life. And then that kid grows up with only one parent and probably the guilt of killing their parents through their birth. So, but she's being dishonest because nobody's arguing for this. Nobody on the pro-choice side argues for 9-month abortion just because you feel like it. It's not a thing that's ever been enshrined in law. It's not a thing that pro-choice advocates advocate for. It's just bunk. It's made up. It's not real. She's arguing against not even a fucking straw man. She's arguing against a wax paper man. There's nothing there. There's absolutely nothing. It's see-through. It's not real. Nobody's arguing for this. But it's the only way her argument holds up is if it's against an extreme. Because, quite frankly, she's an extremist.
Nothing
personally, I cannot speak to every pro-choice person, but personally, 9 months is
no,
late enough. However,
no,
I still
pro-choice.
believe,
why is abortion to you wrong at 9 months? Why are you personally against abortion at 9 months?
The fetus is about to come out of the vagina, and it's going to become an actual human.
Because there's a significant amount of development.
Almost.
Okay, first of all, we know a child is fully formed way before 9 months because have you ever seen a child who's born premature at 25 weeks? They're not malformed, right?
Sometimes they are. Sometimes they have like missing limbs.
Well, that's genetic.
Yeah, okay.
But like when I had the ultrasound of my child, my 4D ultrasound of my daughter, I wanted to get pictures of what she looked like at 25 weeks. She was fully formed inside of my womb. She didn't just like suddenly.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, 25 weeks, I believe it's 25 or 26 weeks, is the cutoff for just abortion. There has to be an extenuating circumstance after that point to be able to be allowed to perform an abortion.
There's not a magical thing in the birth canal. You're like, oh, now there's a human being. That's location. Your humanity can't depend on your location. 2 inches of the birth canal doesn't change. You don't magically become a human being because you pass through a woman's birth canal. Because guess what? 2 of my kids never passed through my birth canal. I delivered C-section. Were they not human beings? Next question.
Oh yeah, this is also why you should probably okay. I've seen other people talk about this. You also should really not participate in these unless you're going to be, at least in my opinion, unless you've like studied this person talking, their arguments, and you are doggedly aggressive. Because there's a reason why she told her to move on next question, because every follow-up is another thing that she's gonna have to explain. And she's not going to be that capable of it. I want to watch a CNN interview, I guess she did, because I want to see if a journalist on CNN, who I don't have the deepest respect for journalists on CNN or even their anchors, but I'm curious to see how much better they fared.
Predicting that child poverty, the rate of that is going to go up. Many of these states that
480.
are doing abortion do not have paid family leave. They do not have the extended Medicaid for after giving, women who give birth. So if you could explain a little bit more about how you're going to fight for these disadvantaged.
Oh, I hate that. No, I don't care. Okay, no, because this isn't the question that needs to be asked. All the she will always pretend, or maybe genuinely support the all of the post healthcare stuff, because that's not important to her. She's fine with all of that. The part of it where she gets the hangups is the abortion and the concept of abortion, because she thinks that life begins at conception, which again, I've said it to other people. You have all the right in the world to believe that is true. I got no problem with that. My issue is when we take that and apply it to every single person, regardless of their beliefs. That's when we have a problem. But either way, okay. Right. Oh yeah. So also keep in mind, this is also the pro-life. This is also the pro-life campaign. Yeah, I'm sure you might have heard the drug mifepristone. I believe it was. Let's just read because I don't remember the deep details. I do remember the headline though. Access to common abortion medication currently hangs in the balance in a pair of contradictory decisions by federal judges, setting the stage for the most significant legal action on abortion since the overturning of Roe v. Wade last year. Mifepristone is widely used across the U.S. to end pregnancy in the first 10 weeks of gestation. Do I still have that picture? I do. Where is it? 10 weeks. 10 weeks is this. Not this one, obviously. It's the little guppy looking one. That's 10 weeks. It doesn't even have legs yet. Widely across nationwide is performed using mifepristone. First of the 2 pill regimen, the drug is also commonly used to help manage miscarriages. The name brand drug Mifeprex, god awful name, was first approved by the Food and Drug Administration more than 20 years ago. Since then, it has been used by millions of times, and major medical groups say it has strong safety record. A generic version was approved in 2019. Now the drug's future is in jeopardy. A federal judge in Texas issued a preliminary injunction that undoes the FDA's approval of mifepristone nationwide beginning this Friday. Meanwhile, oh boy, look at that. A fucking Texas judge just decided for the nation that nope, you can't get this drug. Lovely the way our system works. Meanwhile, a competing rule out of Washington state could limit the Texas injunction's reach. The Biden administration has appealed the Texas decision, and a federal appeals court is likely to weigh in this week. Ultimately, it may be up to the Supreme Court to resolve the conflicts. Great. Everyone's eyes are now open back towards D.C. We anticipate that eventually, whether it is the merits of this case or these injunctions, now dueling injunctions, that the Supreme Court will have to weigh in some way. So keep in mind also, they always said, people like Kristen Hawkins, the Daily Wire boys, all the rest of them have always said it's all about leaving the decision up to the states. Let's be very clear about this. They were always lying. They've always been lying. They were lying then. They're lying now. Doesn't matter. They've been lying about this the entire time. They've always wanted a national ban. It's always been in the plans. Will they get it? If it comes to the Supreme Court, we'll find out, but we'll see. As of Monday, there's no change yet to America's ability to access mifepristone, but that could change as soon as this Friday when the preliminary injunction issued by U.S. District Judge Matthew Kaczmarek, is set to take place. The Texas lawsuit filed by a coalition of abortion rights opponents raised questions about the process by which the FDA originally approved the drug in 2000. A Trump appointee, shocking, agreed with their concerns and in a preliminary ruling on Friday declared the FDA's approval to be invalid. He stayed his own decision for 7 days in order to give time for an appeals court to weigh in. Meanwhile, there's a competing rule out of Washington state where the attorneys general of 17 states and the District of Columbia had sought to force the FDA to expand access to the drug. The judge in that case, U.S. District Judge Thomas Rice, an Obama appointee, didn't go that far, but he did rule Friday that the agency cannot alter access to the drug while the lawsuit proceeds. The decision could offer relief if the Texas injunction goes into effect, though it would be limited to those 17 states and D.C. Those states are Arizona, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Michigan, Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington. For residents of those states, Rice's decision preserves the status quo on ensuring that access to mifepristone remains available. That's nice. For the rest, Ferguson said, the Texas ruling, quote, seriously has the potential to eliminate that access for mifepristone here in the coming days. The Texas ruling's quick timeline has left open a number of questions for the medical providers and pharmacies regarding access to the widely used drug. For example, if medication is already in pharmacy and has already been prescribed, can those prescriptions be filled? These are questions that the lowest court order just does not answer. What are the next steps? Ultimately, this is likely to head to the U.S. Supreme Court. The U.S. Department of Justice has already appealed Texas ruling. Okay. How much of the past couple years since the Supreme Court swung conservative and Roe v. Wade was overturned, abortion providers have been consulting with lawyers and preparing for multiple scenarios. It's going to be working closely with legal advisors in a really in a really rapidly changing environment. That's what I foresee in the next 7 days and likely beyond that. One possibility is for providers to switch to a one-pill protocol in the U.S. Mifepristone, which works by blocking the pregnancy hormone progesterone, Christ above, is used in concert with the second pill, misoprostol, which causes the uterus to expel the pregnancy tissue. Used together, there are fewer side effects to a medication abortion, but using only misoprostol can still be effective. Several major health organizations, including the WHO and the American College of Obstetricians, Christ above, and gynecologists, say the one medical protocol is acceptable, especially when mifepristone isn't available. Okay, lovely. So we'll kind of see. We'll kind of see. Hi there. We'll kind of see how this ends up playing out, but this, at the very least, is gonna fuck over people in the red states. Thank Texas for that. When you're in a red state and something happens, and now you can't get abortion drugs, always a good time. Always a good time living in the southern states. But keep in mind, at least for a while, it seems like some of the blue states will be spared. But either way. Yeah. It's just, when it comes to the abortion conversation, there's a lot of different aspects that I think kind of get rolled and get framed over each other as a way to get away from, I think, the hardest arguments to argue against abortion rights. But we'll kind of see if the Supreme Court weighs in. They'll probably, honestly, I expect them to be in favor of the Texas law, which will continue to erode the rights of women in this country. So that's just lovely. I love seeing that. Always great. Anyway, let me check like one thing here. Okay, I didn't think that was anything. What is this? Tucker, transgenderism is America's fastest growing religion. So, thought we were pro-religion here, Tucker. That was a Tucker headline, sorry. I was just reading on the side. Okay, so let's see. This is 30. We're not going to watch all of this. Something tells me. Do we have this on 1.25? We do have this on 1.25. Okay. All right. We're going to cover somebody we don't cover very often on this show. Or ever. I don't think I've actually watched a video of his. I want to take a look at John Doyle crying about the Trump indictment, mainly because I have kind of an idea of what happens next is going to be. So let's kind of take a look. Let's see what his take is on the Trump indictment. And on the equal justice under the law, I thought, again, I always thought conservatives, Republicans, were pro law and order, and suddenly they're not now. Suddenly it's not as fun. Anyway, let's take a look. Oh my God, what a cringy person. Serious, what is this? Tesla. Oh yeah, those exploding cars, a lot of fun. Smith & Wesson. Ah yes, got to get the gun thing in there. A Trump tweet sticker and a Biden in Vietnam or something. Man, that's what happens when your entire personality is just the conservative memes you read on 4chan. It's unfortunate.
Last week, we reached a new step in the ever-escalating witch hunt against Donald Trump when the former president was indicted by a Manhattan grand jury for his alleged role in misconduct pertaining to what has been described as hush money payments to screen prostitute Stormy Daniels prior to the 2016 election. And this is, of course, unprecedented for a former president, but Donald Trump is not exactly like other former presidents, which is actually why this is all happening in the first place, as we know, as we will discuss. But on Monday, he flew to Trump Tower in New York City, and then on Tuesday, he turned himself in before the arraignment later that afternoon, followed by his scheduled return to Mar-a-Lago, where he delivered an address pertaining to the overall situation and with no gag order imposed.
Imagine thinking that Trump is being oppressed when he gets to show up, do his arraignment, and then fuck right back off to Florida and then have a speech about it, and still think that this guy is being treated horribly by the justice system.
So, since Donald Trump will be the first U.S. president, current or former, to face criminal charges, I think maybe an update on our current political dynamic is warranted, since this is a pretty significant escalation, to say the least. So, we will go over why they're saying this is happening, why this is actually happening, what this means for our politics going forward, the reasons why this is not a good thing, the reasons why this is a good thing, lessons to learn from this, what to be paying attention to, and what the future of our country is going to look like from its current trajectory. So do stay tuned.
And since you're a couple of can I ask your opinion on something? Go right ahead. I'm happy to answer.
John Doyle in. Check off, Tommy.
John Doyle is hiring that woman to pretend to be his wife, because, man, people who venerate this stuff, I'm like, ugh. Makes me a bit nauseous.
Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Heck Off Commie. It feels good to have the hat back on. The hat's back on, staying on. I'm back on Twitter. I'm back behind the desk again. It seems like the energy's shifting. Things are moving back to equilibrium. Order's being restored. Nature's healing. But yeah, we're not going to get too deep into how and why this is happening. I did a whole video back in November, months ago.
We're not going to... Okay. Actually, no. That's right. I don't actually care, because he's just going to lie. So that's fine.
Longest video I've ever done. No topic more deserving,
oh my God, 2 hours?
Why this is happening, who's behind it,
God damn, dude,
so I'll put a link to that video in the description if you want to watch what is like literally the definitive analysis of Donald Trump, like what makes him so different and so effective, how he permanently altered American politics, and in particular conservative politics, why these people will never stop going after him.
I'm going to answer this one really quickly. See, he needed 2 hours to do it. I will answer for you why Donald Trump is important. It's because of 2 reasons. One, he understands the right-wing base. He understands the talk radio listening, Fox News consuming, Facebook reading audience that is the base of the Republican Party. He understands their predisposition to conspiracy and to distrust of not just the government, but specifically people who are of a different political stripe than them. They are rather tribalist in nature, simply because it's the because it's kind of the political project that they orient themselves towards. It's all about being real Americans. It's all about being real men. It's all about women being real women. You hear all of the real women, real men, real American, all this stuff from the right. You don't hear it from the left, because the left is made up of a lot more individualistic people in terms of how they approach politics and how they approach certain topics. Even though a lot of us agree on a lot of things, there's a value on the left for not falling in line and not even in an advantageous way, not falling in line, I should say. There's always this, there's always some more nuance. There's always some more layer that leftists want to dig down into and hyper focus on to differentiate each other from the other. Whereas you don't really see that on the right. The right, a lot of conservatives, a lot of Republican voters tend to fall in line behind whoever is the strong leader at the top of the party, at the top of the ticket. Donald Trump's particularly good at this, because he himself is a product of right-wing talk radio, of Fox News propaganda, of the right-wing media ecosystem that we have in the United States. He also, and this is the part that is key, he's a fucking WWE Hall of Famer. If you don't think that plays in, if you don't think his showmanship, his promos, let me be clear. Every time, I'm a wrestling fan. That is the only sport I really follow. And I can tell you, every single time he gets on a stage, this man cuts promos. This man is cutting promos like fucking Dusty Rhodes. This guy is cutting promos like fucking Macho Man. This guy is cutting promos like Bischoff in the 90s. Like Donald Trump knows how to play the part of strong, strong leader. He knows how to play the part of strong, daddy figure. All of that stuff for the Republican Party. He knows how to angle that into the things that they care about, and he knows the language that they like to use. So is Trump a good politician? Yeah. Is he a good actual bureaucrat in the positions that he's in? Not as much. In terms of a guy who actually knows how to get stuff done, very, very mixed to pretty much dog shit. But he knows how to market, and he knows how to cut a good promo. He knows how to rile the crowd up. He knows how to be inflammatory when he needs to be. He knows how to be vague when he needs to be. But yeah, like the guy is good. He's entertaining as fuck. There's a reason why he had a TV show for himself. But okay, let's read this. So I think that currently abortion should stay legal, and we should work on other things like education, safety nets, etc., etc. But after that, I think that abortion for non-fatal conditions shouldn't be legal. But I also believe in bodily autonomy. I don't know, it's a weird thing in my brain where I'm basically on the center, even though on a logical level, I'm pro-choice. So I think what you're running into is healthy in that, and I said this about the gun issue, and I'm going to say it about abortion as well. It's a balance. And we have to remember that the balance that we're trying to strike from a legal standpoint is not the same thing as the balance that we strike as individuals. And by that, I mean, you mentioned, fixing all of the, education, safety net, all of the things that kind of revolve, I think, about post-abortion. We should be doing that to make everybody's life, regardless of whether you're a soon-to-be born person or if you've been alive for a couple years. We should be absolutely funding the systems and the processes and the structures that make individuals' lives better on a macro scale. Those are things we should do regardless of the abortion issue. In terms of making non-fatal abortions illegal across the board, it's simply that you don't need to make it illegal. What we had in Roe v. Wade and what a lot of states passed were restrictions past, I believe, the 26-week mark, meaning that if your child, you had about 26 weeks, usually, let's just be fair and say 6 weeks of those, you had no idea, which means you have about 20 weeks, which is what, 5 months to come to a decision on, am I ready for this child? Am I not ready for this child? Are there things I could be doing? Are there things I could not be doing? Is this, is the life that this child gonna live, if I have it now, wildly different than if I have it 5 years from now after I'm a little bit more established? And I don't think you're ever going to be able to get away. You're never going to be able to illegalize, I'm assuming that's a word, all non-fatal abortions. But by fixing a lot of the post-abortion anxiety people have, by fixing wages, by fixing maternity leave, by fixing education, you lower a lot of the worries that people are going to have about having kids in the future and how hard it's going to be and how difficult it's going to be. By fixing those, you are going to address that specific issue. You're also going to be able to address with those a lot of the, if we're also fixing the rest of the world, we should also kind of fix the food that we intake and the way that our food is produced, meaning that, those people can be, people can be healthier. We have a lot of people in the United States that are not super healthy, and you fix that, you fix people's ability to survive not just abortions, but survive the parenting process. And, how many parents do we know weren't really ready to be parents, or do we hear about, I don't know about knowing, but do we hear weren't ready to be parents and fall into alcoholism because of their inability to perform that necessary aspect of life that they just weren't ready for? You fix a little bit of that as you fix kind of everybody's, health mentally and physically to a degree. But at the end of the day, I don't think there's never going to be, I think, this has to be blanket illegal, because there's so much variance in the experience of pregnancy that a blanket ban or a blanket one size fit all kind of edict just would leave a lot of people without recourse and leave them in situations that even we would recognize are bad for the kids, they're bad for the adults. The only thing that happens is kids get birthed, but that's not by its nature good necessarily. And if it is for you, and this is, again, this is why I'm pro-choice. If it is for you, if all you care about is bringing those children into the world, the pro-choice path is the only one that allows you to do that and live with that comfort. But a pro-life approach writ large across the country only appeals to that specific group. We only really are addressing the concerns and preferencing the perspective of, and I would honestly argue this, a deep minority of women in this country. So, from a society standpoint, it would be, I don't want to say undemocratic, but a bit undemocratic to force upon all women the perfectly fair perspective that some women hold. At the end of the day, that's just my thing. I'm glad you're pro-choice. I think there's a lot of variance. The reason why the pro-choice movement is a bit difficult sometimes is because it's the acceptance of a spectrum of possibilities and a spectrum of beliefs on abortion. Whereas the pro-life movement, which I can try to always remind people, isn't pro-life, it's anti-abortion. They're unfortunately only interested in, and Kristen Hawkins mentioned it earlier, in black and white, born or unborn. You were either birthed or you weren't birthed. And we as humans are more complicated than that. We just simply are. We are so much more complicated than that. Even, there's a reason why we have all the conversations about gender right now, because we're learning that is it a large group of society? Probably not. But a lot of us are very, very different, even if we might all look the same, even if we all might act very similarly. A lot of us use Twitter, a lot of us use TikTok, a lot of us use Spotify, a lot of us watch the same TV shows as each other. But there's so much variance in who we are as individuals, and the law needs to be written in a way that I think leaves as many people with the choice to live their own individual, version of who they are, while ensuring that, the people who want to make, are able to make whichever decision that they want to make. That's my whole thing. It's a balance. It's a balance. That's the moral of almost all abortion talks. Same with, I've said it about guns too. It's always a balance. It's what you're willing to give up, what you're willing to trade for certain things. There are people who are okay with trading mass shootings of children for gun ownership, and for some that's an okay trade. For a lot of others, that's where they break off and go, I don't know if it's worth it at this point. And the argument isn't about the kinds of guns. I think necessarily the core of the argument is, what are you willing to trade for this right? And I think we've gone past the point where most Americans, and a lot of polling shows us that most Americans are past the point of tolerating the mass shootings that we have, just so Joe Schmo can own an AR-15 and shoot in his backyard. So, and not to say that the other option is taking that away from Joe Schmo, who likes to shoot his AR-15 in the backyard, but we need to moderate this a little bit more for modern society. We need to address the imbalance that we're at on that topic, the same way with abortion right now. But hopefully that very long-winded answer gives you any peace or tranquility. I'm sorry if that was a really long answer and a bit rambly, but I don't want to pretend that there isn't a conversation there and it's not interesting. It's just we need to be honest about the conversation that we're having. Yeah.
Him. And that has actually been endorsed.
Let me say this also. Let me say this also before I even continue. Never let somebody tell you that something, any topic that you're talking about, is less complex than you think it is. Because if you're thinking about something, if you're understanding something in a kind of a complex way of how we balance this, how we balance that, you know, this, that, or the other, right? Understand that that's you trying to assess something on multiple different levels. Now, obviously, sometimes this can be bad. People who fall into conspiracy tend to see things with a million different layers, and there is a point in which you need to assess that. But I find that a lot of times people want to make humans, make the process of how we organize society very strict and very easy to understand. And I want to stress that we are humans and we are a fucking mess. We are so fucking messy, so fucking confusing, so fucking contradictory, and always kind of approach people in that kind of fashion. We're not always all as consistent as we'd like to think we are. And complex issues are complex, and the minute somebody's trying to make it either essentialist or a black or white issue, that should tell you that they're trying to make it as simple as possible, because going with your gut on a lot of stuff might feel good and it might feel rewarding, but you're not really getting down to the truth, to the essence, to the real solution that you're looking for. You're just looking for that good feeling that makes you personally feel good. So keep that in mind. What is this? We have somebody in chat, I guess, in favor of shootings. That's kind of cringe. I'm just letting you know right now. What is your name? Beladits? Oh, okay, cool. It looks like their thing got deleted by. Lovely. Kind of figured that would probably happen. YouTube moderator W. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, let's continue. Let's hear some more. Hopefully,
some big names. But right now, I would rather talk about the state of the country, what this means going forward, since I think we're all mature and honest enough to know basically like why this is happening to Trump and Trump alone. I don't think we need to spend a ton of time entertaining the details of the case. Like, of course, it's nonsense, which, yeah, it's worth dispelling, but we're going to leave that to other people to do, because I think there are more important lessons to take away from this than just Democrats or corrupt liars who are going to use the law to persecute their political opponents. Like, yeah, you know, it's like common.
Well, whoa. Okay. Let's head this off at the pass. Did Trump break the law? Yes. Are Democrats disproportionately interested in applying the law to Trump and Trump allies compared to, I don't know, let's just say Joe Manchin? Absolutely. The reason? Political opposition. Understanding this does not negate the fact that he broke the law. It is an explanation, and you can complain about it, but John Doyle has never been interested in the equal application of the law. If this was Hillary Clinton, he would be clapping about it. He would love this. It's only when it's his guy that it's, oh, now it's unfair, now it's targeting, all the rest of that stuff.
Knowledge, but regardless, Trump went to Manhattan, where he turned himself in to be arraigned, and then he flew back to Mar-a-Lago that evening, where he delivered an address, which yours truly was invited to, but I had to decline because I needed to get this video out for you guys, and I have to work on some stuff for later this week. Gotta get back home in time for Easter. You know, my grandma, she's telling me she wants to dye Easter eggs with me. What am I gonna do, argue with that? No. It's like, hey, sorry, you know, I know it's been a rough couple of weeks, but Mr. President, I'm sorry, you know, I've got a prior commitment that sort of requires my attendance. It's very, very complicated business. But anyways, so the left is, of course, committed to this idea that Trump is just having justice served to him. This is totally fair, totally impartial, and obviously we know that that's not.
It is totally fair. It's totally not impartial.
Not true, judging from the countless examples of people on their side committing like far more severe crimes than what they're implying Trump is alleged to have done, and at a
such as, I'll wait. He's never gonna say which crimes. He's just gonna allude to it and move on.
Far higher frequency and in far more conspicuous a manner. So just like know that as we move forward, just know that when these people say like, well, nobody's above the law, like they don't mean that in any sense that's more legitimate or respectable than like a schoolyard tattletale, which by the way, isn't even to say that Trump did anything wrong, but these people hate Trump, and therefore any crusade against Trump is legitimate and just like the impeachments, just like the Russia hoax, everything else in the last 8 years, like it's all equally righteous and just.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry I didn't protect you from that one. Yeah, did he break the law or didn't he? That's the only thing I care about. If he did, lock him up. If he didn't, let him go. And I hold this stance for literally everybody. Joe Biden, all of them, every single one of them.
Just and rooted in accountability. And that actually tends to be a more accurate understanding of power than we have on our side, because we had people on our side saying things like, you know, DeSantis, he should refuse to extradite Trump and make Florida a sanctuary state for him. And then you had like big accounts saying things like, actually, DeSantis doesn't have the power to do that under Article 4, Section 2 of the Constitution. And I read that, I'm like, thank God. Like, thank God somebody said it right now. Like the beacons, because the Constitution's back. Just wait until the left hears about this. It's going to be like every episode of Fairly Odd Parents, you know, at the end where he's like, I wish everything would go back to normal. That's our country when Democrats find out that they're supposed to obey the Constitution. So we have this interesting dynamic where leadership in one party is actively maneuvering.
Okay, I'm not even gonna. We're just gonna move on.
Popular figure in the other party who happens to be a former president, openly intends on taking back the White House next election.
Deal with
when
it.
People in this party realize this threat,
Stay
start
mad.
brainstorming ideas of how to fight back against it. The supposed thought leaders in this party are like, actually, the Constitution says you can't do this, so you can. It's like, okay, we've heard this a million times, still waiting on it to pay out for us. Okay, well, what's the alternative then? Like, what are these people proposing we do instead? They're saying another thing we've heard a million times with very little payout, that the pendulum is just going to swing back. Hey, relax, the Democrats, they're doing this. Let them. Because when we're back in charge, we're just going to do it right back to them. The pendulum's going to swing back. It's going to smack them right in the face. It's going to be totally epic. Is this even possible to believe?
Which also, by the way, people who say that are proving that they're uninterested in the equal application of the law. What they're actually interested in that case would be political prosecutions. That's what they'd be interested in. They're right now in Congress investigating the, quote, Biden crime family, to which I'm waiting to hear how that goes. If Biden has an investigation on the Biden crime family and they never bring charges, can we have a conversation about how full of shit this argument has been? How the argument that, oh, the Democrats have been breaking the law has always been complete hogwash? Will he ever talk about it? Probably not. He's going to venerate the fact that the Biden crime family investigations are happening. He's going to shut the fuck up. And then, if nothing ever comes of them, just forget about it. It's like it never happened. But if something does come up, or if they do something, then he's going to be like, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Biden crime family. But then when it falls through or whatever, or if it does fall through, then it's going to be like, oh, shh. Oh, man. Looks like, shh. Quiet. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Like, when has that ever happened with significant consequences? People want this to be true so badly on our side. It's like this deeply embedded cope. And I don't know what the fixation about this is in particular. Like, they can only conceptualize politics as entertainment. Which, yeah, it's entertaining, but it's not entertainment.
Also,
so they
standard,
this idea. They get this idea in their head
corporate
of, like,
Republicans, centrist Republicans do not want to start investigations.
It's like they think they're watching a WWE match, and it's like a tables match, right?
The
wrestler, he's setting up a table
of like Nancy Pelosi, because if you investigate Nancy Pelosi,
he gets distracted, taunting.
If you investigated Nancy Pelosi, oh, you CM Punk. If you investigated Nancy Pelosi for stock trading, right? Which they should, they absolutely should. But here's the problem. The only people who would do that would be Republican officials. And you know what Republican officials do? They trade stock. They do the exact same thing that Nancy Pelosi does. Unfortunately, both parties at the centrist and corporate level are pretty similar to each other in that regard. So they don't want to investigate each other because they're going to implicate each other. The minute you turn around and say, Nancy Pelosi, are you trading on insider knowledge on the stock market? The minute they can say that and they can complain about it, but the minute they investigate it, the minute they start looking into it, they know that they're going to be implicated, because all she has to say and all any of the other members of both parties have to say is, dude, if you do this and any of our names come up, it's going to blow the whole thing open and we're all going to be indicted on this. So keep your fucking mouth shut and never file the paperwork. Just complain about it. Just always complain about it. Never do any of that. The minute you take action is the minute the system has to start investigating. And the minute the system has to start investigating, there's going to be some stray shots hitting people.
The other guy's girlfriend did, and now the wrestler catches him on the turnbuckle. What's he doing? Superplex through the table that the other guy set up. He superplexed him through his own table. Jim Ross has a heart attack, collapses at ringside. Ring the bell. That's like what this whole pendulum thing is. Like, first of all, it presupposes two things.
I want to watch wrestling with John Doyle.
That the Democrats and or the establishment
see how much he actually knows.
Having serious power again, like, That's obviously not the case. Evidenced in particular by the fact that they're doing this to literally prevent Donald Trump from entering the White House again. So it can't exactly be a pendulum if what the other side is doing is actively preventing your chances of ever getting near the levers of power again. It's really like more of a ratchet than a pendulum.
Also, keep in mind the office of the AG office in New York is not the White House. The White House is not suing on this. This
Secondly,
is a state.
Even when we get into power, our leadership has no balls. Like anybody who does have balls is either prevented from retaining power, or they're harassed with impediments, which largely prevent them from being effective. Like, what are we actually supposed to believe? Are we supposed to believe that the GOP leadership is going to indict Joe Biden or Hillary Clinton or Barack Obama, any one of these people, Anthony Fauci? Like, I don't think anybody actually believes that that's going to happen. But that's what the people trying to contain us in this pre-Trump paradigm of what passes.
They all break the law
in this country. That's what they're trying to tell us. Like, just relax.
You don't ever want to open the door.
Like, yes, but not because of you, because me and my cool friends are actually going to see to it. But the Constitution isn't coming to save you. If it were, we wouldn't be here right now. Like, there's no such thing as a nation of law.
Flimsy ass piece of paper that's
going to make exceptions for themselves, for their ends.
Basically at risk of deteriorating if it comes out of its case.
Like, the people who
will
are
not
in charge
save
of
you.
enforcing laws. That's what matters. Like, the Constitution by itself, how it's designed to provide a framework for our laws, that's not going to save you. It's like the cardinal rule of governments. Only the person in charge matters. If some bureaucrat doesn't want something to happen, he's going to like discover some portion of the law that, oh, my hands are tied, there's nothing I can do. But if he does want something to happen, he's just going to like interpret the law in such a way as to allow that thing to happen.
Well, what's funny is what he's actually describing is Democrats when they're in power. Whenever Democrats are in power, they tend to look through every single rule and try to find some bylaw that it's like, I can't do it. I'm sorry. What's the thing in the Senate? Why did I think the proletariat? Fuck. There's like the person in the Senate who doesn't let them change the filibuster, and I can't remember their goddamn name. There's like that person, that Republicans, if they ever disagree with them, they're like, cool, you're fired. Do you agree with us? Cool, get in here. Let us do it. He is describing a dynamic, but it's a dynamic shared by the two corporate wings of both parties.
Sometimes this takes a few.
Which might tell you something.
Repeating. It's like how we
There's
went
almost
from an
like
implied
this
right to privacy to you have a
corporate wing,
right
and then
your child
everybody else.
For any reason.
But the corporate wing
is the
is
same. And yeah, if you go to the courts,
more than
you're
a
just
wing.
It's changing the person in charge,
the
from
bird, the wing,
to a judge, and you're hoping that the judge is on your side, which probably means the side of the law.
Like the left
which is
wing.
What's supposed to make judges unique when compared to other government officials. But in practice, what we see is largely the same. Just more power actors making decisions based on what they want. This is just the way that things work. And the sooner we figure that out, the sooner we can catch up. By the way, this is what George Soros figured out a long time ago, which is why he pays to install district attorneys like.
I really love when they bring up Soros, when we all know who the Koch brothers are. We all know who the Mercers are. The idea that there aren't right-wing equivalents who have a lot more influence directly on Republican Party politics is cope.
Alvin Bragg. Well, it's just following the law, right? They just prosecute.
Also, they obsess over.
You can't just eliminate the
Soros
reality of political power by like trying to democratize it into this algorithm. And in fact, that actually makes it worse because now it's pretty much impossible to have accountability. The courts, the bureaucracy, like what is the average person supposed to do to combat the damage that has been done to this country?
What is the average
person
to
labels
do?
Of those institutions. I'm not saying our form of government is necessarily
Vote
bad, by the
for
way. I'm not
less
saying the
corrupt
Constitution needs
candidates.
To be totally abandoned.
That's
I'm just
what
saying what I've
you
said
do.
for years. It's not enough. You can't just refuse to play ball. The left plays ball. The left.
Like, I hate the guy, but if I remember correctly, Matt Gaetz does not take campaign donors. He doesn't take super PAC money, which I respect. I hate the guy. He's might be a predator, but still. At the end of the day, if you're not taking donor money, if you're not taking big dark money, I can at least respect it.
Is for keeps, and so they win. They understand how politics works. And one thing they understand very well is that in politics, you can literally do whatever you want. You figure out what you need to get done, you come up with the policies that achieve this either directly or by proxy, come up with your PR strategy to quell the emotions of the masses, come up with your legal strategy to get it through the courts, and then you just do it. Like, you can only not do it if you're prevented from doing it. That's actually how you win. Like, this is how you play for keeps and deliver for the people who elected you to make their country and their lives better.
This was the play that Republicans and conservatives made for the abortion movement back in
1 second, please. Since
when
we're
Roe v.
essentially
Wade
discussing
got
how the only relevant
overturned.
political virtue is
That was the
loyalty,
process.
and I am loyal
They
to
went through the
iTarget.
courts.
I think it's time to spread the truth. Father's Day is right around.
No. Is this like fucking, yeah, it's like gun shit. I love how this guy with his fucking Garand and a fucking helmet has never seen a war zone. But like, he cosplays as like a World War II vet and stuff. Cause he wishes he had that kind of valor, honor, and bravery, but he doesn't. He sits in a office with a stupid sign, and that's probably a real gun. But yeah, it's very LARPy. It's very live in the now, man. Live your life. Stop trying to live your grandfather's bravery.
Offer code Doyle, very epic. We continue. But yeah, it's like we said, there's always reasons for these things being done, and usually they're indirect. Like, for example, look at the Manhattan DA, Alvin Bragg. Now, Alvin Bragg is probably genuinely just a low IQ diversity hire who believes that the reason differences in crime rates exist is something to the effect of $20,000 per student per year in funding instead of $25,000 per student per year in funding. That's fine. He can be the useful idiot.
Wait, what? Wait, then why is crime more prevalent in poor neighborhoods than rich neighborhoods? Do we have an... We're not going to explain that, are we? Also, again, he only thinks he's a diversity hire because, and let's be honest here, he's black. Because John Doyle's a racist. He's also a Nazi, I believe, so there's also that.
But the people who install these people into these positions, people like George Soros, they understand that it's beneficial to the people who pull the strings in this country to have violent criminals
Again, with the
walking around
Jews,
basically terrorizing citizens with impunity. Because when you have fear, when you have low trust, when you raise the consequences of accurately describing the problems that we face, when you remove people's ability to be proud of their cities, be proud of their communities because you've turned them into shitholes, it makes it very difficult to reverse course. And the regime benefits from instability like this. That's why they don't go after criminals. People are like, well, why could they?
Also, keep in mind, he just said George Soros turned these communities into shitholes. Understand the reason why Chicago, New York, any of these places who have high poverty rates are the way that they are is choices that we as a society made. We made choices about infrastructure. We made choices about how to distribute taxes. We made choices about distributing taxes to those schools. We make choices about at least on a structural level, we make choices about who can open businesses in these areas, how much money that they get to start these businesses. So these are all choices that there are many systems and processes that bear down on these communities. It's not just George Soros paid somebody to stop funding this or that. Also, keep in mind, the people who defund a lot of education and infrastructure resources aren't Democrats. They're Republicans.
They'd be doing this. Like, what do you mean why? You know exactly why. If you explain this to an alien who is visiting Earth for the first time, or to like an AI or something, asked it to infer a motive,
definitely
it would tell you what you already know.
Get an AI.
People are like, oh, we'll never attribute to malice what can be explained by stupidity. What does that even mean? Like, what do you think you're saying to me right now? Sometimes I hear people speak. I genuinely believe that they're just trying to like prove that they can speak English to me. Like,
I love that
no meaning or purpose.
I love that he doesn't
people
understand that
just
very
say little
simple
phrases like that, as if they're just true. Like okay,
simple
explain
phrase.
to me why we should never do that. Also, the complete quote contains a very important word which I never hear comprehended by these people. Adequately. It's never ascribed to malice that which is adequately explained by incompetence. And guess what? The explanation from the standpoint of incompetence is inadequate. Like, we're not talking about a child.
Okay, we're just moving on.
Spilling milk.
I'm not getting into how that's literally not saying anything different, but
we're talking about the most basic amenities of civilization. Criminals need to be dealt with. And we're moving in the opposite direction. Like, we're supposed to be conquering the stars, eliminating traffic, stopping the world from killing itself, but instead we're just babysitting.
How does one eliminate traffic? Should we just make all municipal works, just turn everything into an enormous highway? If you remember the highways from like iRobot, that's what we need to be building. Again, I don't know. See, this is also the thing. He says a bunch of shit that doesn't actually mean anything. It's all just eliminate traffic. What does that mean? What do you mean eliminate traffic? The concept of traffic? Well, what do you want to do with the traffic? What's the solution here? But he doesn't have one. It's just eliminate. People don't like traffic. Eliminate traffic. People like space. We're supposed to be investigating space. Okay. That's nice, but what does this have to do with anything?
And Napoleon, by the way, a foremost combatant in the perpetual campaign against the global libtard menace, he would have taken this into account. Like, what if the malice installs the incompetence? What if the evil enables the retarded?
Short King
and we
Napoleon.
tend to fall into this framework of thought because we can only conceive of running a country with the end goal in mind being to do so competently, or at least trying to. But when you abandon that framework and start to be a little bit more honest about our situation, you will at least find peace and clarity, and that things start to make a lot more sense. Like, we're looking at the situation right now in Manhattan under Alvin Bragg. Armed robbery, drug dealing, burglary, like these are all now classified as misdemeanor offenses, but felonious assaults are up 15%, major crimes up 22%. This guy's over here trying to go after Donald Trump for it.
So the funny thing also, I've actually heard this. Is there a can I find, let's see if I can see it. Let's see if I can find. Can I get something a little bit more? I always hear about crime. Let's take a look. Citywide crime statistics. Oh, February 2023. Oh, good. Let's see, for the month of February, yada, 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 show me. Let's see, February 2023. Oh, man, they don't have a fun chart. Okay, we'll look at this. We'll look at this. I'm okay with this. This will do. Where's the other display? There we go. All right. As of the NYPD citywide crime stats, murder down, what is it? Down 27%. Rape down 22%. Robbery down 10.5%. Felony assault up 4%. Okay. Burglary down 15%. Grand larceny down 7.2%. Larceny auto up 3.2%. A total of down 5.6%. Additional statistics: transit crime. Let's see. I'm assuming this means transit. These are the places. Down 9%, 5%, 14%. All right. Rape. Let's see. Can I get a... Okay. Total incidents reported. 122 in 2018, 133 in 2019, 130 in 2020, 99 in 2021. Up 140 as of last year and back down to 109. Lower than the 2018 number. You can... These aren't woke numbers, ladies and gentlemen. This is the New York City Police Department. Lest you say these are woke numbers. Let's see. Hate crime statistics. Down 92% for Asians. Down 91% for blacks. Zero disability. Ethnic, 200%. I don't know what the fuck that means. Gender, down 67%. Wait. Is this crime statistics summary? Motivation. Oh, I understand what they're saying. Motivate. Okay. So the motivating factor. Okay, somebody black. Okay. Somebody's gender. Okay, Hispanic. We don't have numbers, weirdly. Jewish. Down 69%. All right. So crime wave. Remember when they talk about crime waves? This is... You know, what numbers did he use? I'm actually kind of curious. This is probably not going to include these numbers, but show me those numbers again.
You can only conceive of running a country with the end goal in mind being to do so competently, or at least trying to. But when you abandon that framework and start to be a little bit more honest about our situation, you will at least find peace and clarity, and that things start to make a lot more sense. Like, we're looking at the situation right now in Manhattan under Alvin Bragg. Armed robbery, drug dealing, burglary.
Let's see. Manhattan Day, stop seeking prison sentence.
Like, these are all now classified as misdemeanor offenses.
Okay, that's true.
Assaults are up 15%.
Felonious assaults, all right. They are up 4% year over year.
Major crimes up 22%.
I don't know what the fuck major crimes is. That's not... Also, yeah, in 2022. Guess what? They are right in 2022, but sadly, we live in 2023. Unlike John Doyle, we live here in the present. John Doyle lives at least a minimum of 1 to 10 years, up to like 80 in the past. So, yeah, sorry, there's not really this... It's all kind of just projection.
Campaign finance violations, like violations that are so egregious that it's taken top priority. But, you know, who can blame the guy? I mean, you're not talking about murders, robberies, I got rapes. You're talking about campaign finance violate. Like, this is not the minor leagues anymore. You're talking about campaign finance, and you're talking about violations. Like,
well,
I didn't
those
know
are
people did that.
laws.
That had to be explained to me. And still, I could not wrap my mind around something so demented. I even heard from one of my contacts that when Alvin Bragg's office first got wind of these campaign finance improprieties,
who do you think are John Doyle's contacts?
That by 9 o'clock the following morning, 2 of the senior prosecutors had resigned, and one of the clerks who had actually first handled the documents, they committed suicide. Like, that's some pretty messed up campaign finance violation. I mean, even potentially...
What? Wait a minute. Let's see. Alvin Bragg. What did he say? Clerk? Suicide? Let's take a look. What, can I get a source for this? Massively criticize. Employee? Death threats. Bad case of something. Announces conviction. Threatening note. So... Yeah, we're just gonna go with that's a lie until I get something else.
Accusing him of falsifying a legal document. Like, at what point are you not an animal when you're doing, like, any man can kill, any man can steal. You just push him to that point, introduce the requisite socioeconomic factors. But supposedly violate campaign protocol 7 years ago, like, at that point, how are you in practical terms?
Wait, John, are you saying that crime is a is a result of socioeconomic situations? That we are widely influenced by the environment that we're in? Interesting take.
Different from Adolf Hitler. Actually, Hitler never violated campaign finance laws, to my knowledge. Like, say what you will about the guy. Hey, we can call a spade, but even he never violated campaign finance laws. Like, are we actually supposed to believe this? Like, these people are just so personally offended and perturbed by campaign finance.
Is there only Hitler and everybody else when it comes to crimes committed?
History? If you have 30 minutes, an open mind, and an internet connection,
we're not even.
You can construct a case that would prove
are we sure Hitler raped
actual
anybody?
Examples of this with Hillary Clinton, with the Biden family, with the Podestas, with Soros.
The Jews,
you can have a whole afternoon of it. But that's
did
not what
he
this
personally
is about.
rape anybody?
But it's still worth pointing out, because the problem isn't exactly government overreach or political persecution. It's that they're doing it to Donald Trump specifically because he represents essentially the will of the American people. And if we had competent right-wing leadership that sent federal agents to raid properties owned by the Obamas, by the Clintons, by the Podestas, by Soros, Gates, et cetera, you're not going to hear me complaining about political persecution and government overreach, because these are things that actually need to be done, because these people have actually committed crimes and transgressions against the American people. But nobody hears about that. And nobody hears about the...
Imagine thinking, oh yeah, election crimes that have been on the books for decades. You know, people have gone to jail for campaign finance laws. Nope, doesn't count because the Clintons broke a law somewhere, I think. Maybe. I have no evidence, but I'm pretty sure. Weak case here, man. Can I get some facts to go with these feels?
The minor ones either. You know, Barack Obama, he violates federal disclosure laws, no indictment. He pays a fine, media doesn't cover it, average person probably doesn't even hear about it. Hillary Clinton, she pays for the fake Steele dossier, which causes years of dishonest media coverage against Trump, disrupts basically the entirety of his first term in office with, of course, the appointment of a special prosecutor. Turns out it's all illegal nonsense.
Wait. If they paid a fine, that means they were found guilty. John, you idiot. You do realize that if they paid a fine, or if they did, you know, if Obama paid a fine, if the Clintons paid a fine, that's called the law being distributed equally. Like, they broke the law, they pay the fine. That's how it works. I thought that was how this works. What's controversial about that? They broke the law, they were found guilty, they paid their debt to society. In this case, being a fine. Okay.
No worries, no indictment. They pay a fine. Media doesn't cover it. Average person probably.
Well, it's too bad they also didn't.
They literally have helicopters following his every move. Like,
what's
OJ
it called?
fleeing in the Bronco.
They probably didn't.
We've never seen anything like this before. And here's why that's not necessarily good, by the way.
Perform
it's by no means
fraudulent
blow,
tax,
but it's not all good news.
Tax evasion.
In terms of how this is going to affect the average person, there are basically two interpretations. The first interpretation of it is, well, where there's smoke, there's usually fire. They probably wouldn't have gone after him if they didn't have a case, et cetera, et cetera. And their perception of Trump ends up being worse than what it was. How much worse? What it was already, that's case by case. But on the net, it's not beneficial. The other interpretation of it is, well, these people have never given this guy a break. I mean, now they're trying to put him in jail. You know what? Maybe he was actually trying to do the right thing, et cetera, and their perception of him on the net becomes more positive. Both of these are very possible. But I think you're going to see a lot more of the former than the latter. You're going to see more average people who don't really follow politics that closely, people who don't really follow the news that closely. You're going to see their perception of Trump become more negative on the net, because to really take the second position, you have to be following politics closely enough to know that they kept going after this guy and that it amounted to nothing. That's the key component. People who aren't following as closely, they're just going to remember that, you know, every time they turned on the news or they were in the gym, whatever, it always seemed like Trump was wrapped up in some scandal, which will just make them more likely to think that, well, they finally got him, right? Hey, they were right to finally indict him. The other thing is, you have to be following closely enough to even know what Trump was running on and what his whole agenda in office was about. The average person probably...
What's funny, mostly, honest to God, the only way you think that this is an issue is, honestly, if you're already a Trump guy, if you're already a Republican Party voter or a MAGA stan, there's really not... You see this and you're like, wow, well, we'll see if you broke the law. That's really it. Most normal people don't have time for a lot of this shit. Most normal people are like, hey man, he broke the law. He broke the law. It's kind of that's as far as most people think about it. It's just not that interesting to talk about for normal people. They don't know Trump. They don't know people who know Trump. They know their family member who thinks Trump is always innocent and is very cringy and probably has like 5 MAGA hats, but if anything, that makes them more willing to be like, cool, lock him up. I'm sick and tired of hearing about this guy from my crazy ass uncle.
Doesn't know that. I mean, maybe they know about the wall, but that's about it. So the left knows that this is going to poison the well a little bit more with Trump, and they're hoping that they can count on the cowardice of the GOP to continue moving away from Trump, like they've been trying to do for a while now. So people might think that he's too toxic or too problematic now or something. And that's another thing that we really went into in the Trump dissertation.
The internal
pretty much
Republican
all of the
Party
baggage that Trump has
certainly
only exists in the minds of the
wants
public
him
because of the incessant media
to go
freakouts
away.
over things that were ultimately not that bad. But that because of that nonstop coverage, they were able to somewhat effectively actually crystallize the public perception of Trump as this like corrupt incompetent. So that's why it's not all good news. It is going to turn some people off more so than already. But the good news is that it's unlikely anybody who's turned off by this was going to vote for Trump anyways. And it's also unlikely that this would push somebody who was Trump sympathetic over the edge against him. Like we said, anybody who is at least
this
Trump
is only going to
sympathetic
harden.
is far more likely to have this solidity.
He is right. This is only going to harden support for Trump and not really affect anybody who already doesn't love him.
Solidify their support for him. And that's why in the long run, on the net, this is good for us. This was inevitable. You know, this is going to move the ball down the field for us. I've never been one of these people, by the way, who thinks that we're going to have this like mass awakening. People are going to realize how bad things are, and they're going to act accordingly, and they're going to mobilize. That's just not the way that these things work.
They're never going to see the world as I see it.
There's something to be said about this, like
we
waking up people who do have the capacity to get it, so to speak. There really is a sort of Gnosticism to this, actually. Moreover, this is going to solidify and energize the base, and already you've seen huge influxes of donations, huge crowds turning out to support the president.
Oh yeah, this is a great moneymaker for Trump. Let's be clear.
We need that energy behind Trump to disarm the effort of the GOP establishment to try to move into this post-Trump territory.
So
and that's maybe even the greatest part of this whole thing. It's the perfect opportunity to find out where people really stand. It's the perfect litmus test. We're not going to get a better one anytime soon. At this point, anybody who's not standing explicitly with Trump is aligned with the establishment. It's really that simple. So pay very, very close attention because, again, we're not going to get a more clear litmus test anytime soon. We have friends and we have enemies, and they are revealing themselves right now. Ron DeSantis, he's got a great opportunity right now. He could endorse Trump for president. He could stand beside him, and then 2028 would be his. Trump would campaign for him. He would be a national hero. I mean, this guy's young. He's in his 40s. Why not just wait another few years? Why try to co-opt the torch from Trump prematurely? It's because he's got vipers whispering into his ear. Really interesting how the day that Trump's indictment is announced, Florida moves to rewrite the law, which currently says that the governor of Florida can't run for president during his term as governor. What a snake. Don't do this, man. It was so easy to do the right thing. And you still can, by the way. You can still be the guy.
Oh, I didn't know that. Is he gonna be like, I can't be governor now. I have to pick one.
A little bit longer.
Oh, man.
You know you're not going to beat Trump. Like, don't kamikaze your political career. It's okay. Like, it's okay.
It would
Figure
kamikaze.
destined for greatness, like a Robert E. Lee or a Donald J. Trump. You can still rise to the occasion and do great.
I love that he has to pick a Confederate. Do you notice that? He couldn't have picked. He couldn't pick Lincoln. He couldn't pick Washington. He couldn't pick Jefferson. Couldn't pick Benjamin. Couldn't pick Roosevelt. He could have picked any historical figure in American history. But who does he pick? A Confederate war general. That should tell you a lot about John Doyle's politics.
Things. You can be like a Stonewall Jackson. That's inappropriate, actually. I shouldn't use those comparisons. We know how you feel about that part of American history, Ron. You know, I was telling people to watch out for Ron DeSantis 2 years ago. Now people are seeing what we've known all along, that the arc of history is long, but it bends towards total Doyle vindication. And people actually have this delusional take. They're like, well, they're trying to put Trump in prison and prevent him from running for president so that he actually gets the nomination because they're really scared of running against DeSantis. Okay, first of all, if that were the case, they would just fortify against DeSantis too. Like, the reason they're worried about running against Trump is because Trump is actually popular, far more so than DeSantis, by the way. He's a far better politician, and he has a far better vision for the future of this country, along with the ability to actually inspire loyalty and hope within people, where DeSantis is...
Yeah, he does, but only with sycophants. See, that's the problem. The problem that Trump has is that over the course of the Biden administration, Trump has done himself no favors in terms of garnering support from independents or undecided voters. So, yeah, like the base love him, but you can't win a presidential race on the back of even in the party, a minority base that isn't that strong on like a general election level. Trump is not as strong. Trump is nigh unbeatable in a primary, but he is unfortunately for the Republican Party just weak enough that it's going to be really hard for him to win a general election.
It's basically John McCain or Mitt Romney with like an updated OS. Like, look at the polling, look at the crowds, look at the two men. They're scared to run against DeSantis. Bro, DeSantis is scared to run against DeSantis. That's why they're trying to rewrite the laws. If he were so confident, he would just step down from governor of Florida right now and start campaigning instead of doing what he's doing now, which is basically everything involved in campaigning except not calling it campaigning. You know, Trump put out a book in 2016 titled Crippled America, How to Make America Great Again. DeSantis puts out a book in preparation for 2024. It's titled The Courage to be Free. What? I mean, that really says it all right there, doesn't it? Here's a fun game I played the other night. Take the phrase "the courage to be free" and infer from that like a vague sentiment. Okay. Now, Google the books published by any one of your least favorite establishment neocons. It's literally the same. Like if you took the vague sentiment from any one of the titles, you put them all next to each other. you just kind of like squint your eyes. It's literally all the same. It's all recycled. It's repackaged. But only Donald Trump, from a leftist perspective, described by his title. That's why people love him, because it's real.
Absolutely has.
But it's not stale. It's not off the mark.
For a normal normie American,
pretty good, I guess. They're actually animated and excited by it because it's real. Before Donald Trump descended from the golden escalator, people didn't know that they had the ability to have these grievances addressed, because at that point, the effective difference between the two parties was much more marginal than it was.
You know what I find interesting also? John Doyle identifies an actual, I think, malaise and cognitive dissonance that a lot of Americans share. Do you want to know what the other person who got popular like Trump did? It was Bernie. Like there's a reason why both those guys got as popular as they did at the exact same moment, and why, if the Democratic Party had not fucked over Bernie Sanders in 2016 in the primaries, we could be looking at a very, very different political landscape. Because a matchup between Bernie and Trump, I think I'm okay with saying that Bernie would have definitely won. Mainly because, and I say this because when I went out canvassing in 2016, when I went door to door, when we went to very conservative regions, there was a few times we went out into kind of the mountains out here in Colorado. The answers that I got from a lot of people were, I would never vote for Hillary. I would think about it with Bernie, but I got to go with Trump. Which means if they're even amenable to Bernie, considering he was forwarding such a positive vision for the country back in 2016 compared to Hillary, who was essentially saying everything's fine. What do you mean? Like Hillary's whole campaign was, what do you mean things are bad? I'm about to be president. I'm Hillary Rodham Clinton. Like, that was her message. Bernie's message was the exact same thing as Trump's, which was, there are issues with our wages. There are problems with the way our country's run. There's corruption at the core of it. We need to change our systems. We need to represent the people better. All of this stuff. All of it just without the weird nationalism and xenophobia and mild racism. But yeah, I think Bernie absolutely would have appealed better to independents, much better to Democrats, and would have peeled off some conservative voters. But, you know, we are where we are. But it's interesting that John Doyle never seems to be interested in bringing up the mirror from the left of Trump, which is Sanders, who is still in power and is still making a lot of positive movements in terms of what he can do in the Senate.
Categorical. That's why the polling for Republicans is always doomed to inaccuracy, because unlike Democrats, Republicans largely and correctly don't feel sufficiently represented by their party. Only about like a quarter do, actually, which is why if you look at the polling for how Americans identify politically, Republicans are going to win the plurality over Democrats. But when you start adding options like undecided, none of the above, Tea Party, etc., then these win by far. Democrats come in second, and then Republicans are like way behind. And a serious party would try to figure out why that might be, maybe adjust from there. But we're not a serious party. And I've seen this 1,000 times.
That is true. They are not a serious party.
But people working in right-wing politics will have this almost maniacal commitment to an obviously stupid idea just because it's like a fantasy for them. Like they just want it to be true. Or also they have like this catty grievance against the person or people who are working towards the opposite.
You mean like the trans issue being the core of the Republican Party platform?
Whatever that may be.
It did cost. There's a reason why it cost them the midterms.
People have with Trump. Because not everybody's going to be at the level where it's like a knowingly malicious thing because they're being paid to sell out their country. A lot of mediocre people just are coping with the feelings of inadequacy. I mean, it's like class insecurity. They can't allow Trump to be president.
My God, class analysis?
But because of who supports him. You can really get a strong insight as to the contempt that even people who claim to be on our side feel towards our voters, because they look at Trump's popularity, his insane popularity, not just in terms of numbers, but the like almost fanatical loyalty and love that his supporters have for him. And they are sooner to attribute this to low IQ cult behavior than they are to perhaps Trump more accurately understanding the needs of our country than they do. Like, these people like to do nothing but
Yeah, Trump understands. So again, this is a conflation of Trump speaking and being able to identify the issues that people care about, and the dissonance that there is between that and what he actually plans on doing about that. The issue, if Trump talked about making America great again, doing good things for the country, and then did them, then yeah, I'd be a supporter of Trump. But what does he actually do? He talks a lot about the corruption that exists. Meanwhile, hiring those same people. He talks a lot about the unfair nature of our economic system. But when it, he talks about sticking up for farmers and being a working class plumber kind of guy. But what does he do when he gets a chance to really impact the American worker? He cuts taxes for owners, for business leaders, to corporations. So it's like, all right, cool. So this is all a front for the same politics, the same policies that Mitch McConnell wants to push for. It's just co-opted by that party. Unfortunately, John Doyle doesn't quite, I think, understand or ever want to reckon with the fact that Trump he ran as a populist and governed as a corporatist. He governed like every other fuck-ass Republican administration since the 1980s. But because he's good at the pretending to be an average man, because he has the IQ of a fucking kindergartner, people think he's one of them. And coming down a golden escalator should tell you enough about how much somebody is like you if, you're like a fucking HVAC repairman.
Masturbate to their own self-images. Serious political people. It's like, no, you're just losing.
The economy, healthcare, housing, etc. Cultural topics,
they're business owners,
yeah,
they're attorneys,
precisely.
they're middle class.
And it's why they lose at a lot of broad elections.
I mean, there's a reason that within the Trump community, if you will, Trump boat parades keep happening. Like, you're not going to be able to afford a boat if you're some unemployed hillbilly, like both the left and establishment right like to portray Trump supporters as. They're just normal Americans who don't want to hate their country anymore and who want it to be respected again, but also who understand that in order for it to be respected, then it has to again become respectable. That's why the meme of Trump, like, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm just in the way. It's actually totally correct. Like, I have no issue with Trump beyond that he presents the opportunity to actually enact serious change in our
liberals walk into every
actually
trap.
represent the will of his people. Before he did that, they loved him. Anybody who challenges the system will face this, which is now why they're trying to put him in jail for allegedly paying off somebody without crossing all the T's, dotting all the I's. The Clintons would have just assassinated the person instead of paying him off. Like, Trump is literally being punished for being...
Yeah, like, you could say this, John, but give me literally anything other than laughing because it's untrue.
Too nice. He's literally being punished for not following these people's protocol.
The trap is making Democrats chose trans as the hill on. Oh, yeah. No. Okay, so this is where I disagree with you. Absolutely. Republicans want... Like, the Republican Party wanted, or at least certain ideologues wanted to make the trans issue the centerpiece of this conversation. What they didn't realize is that they're on the wrong side of that and on the unpopular side. It's why they lost. Democrats, unfortunately, now this is the difference between Democrats and progressives. Democrats, and when I mean Democrats, I mean Biden, Pelosi, Schumer, those sorts of, centrist, corporatist Democrats. They're idiots for always walking into every single culture war issue because they have nothing to say on economics. They're not interested, just like Republicans are, in economics. So they're willing to oblige in the culture war stuff. But I do think that the trans issue is worth debating. But unfortunately, the Democratic Party and its leadership has a financial incentive to only be interested in that topic in lieu of fixing any of the economics, which would actually solve a lot of core issues. Human rights are important, absolutely. But what a lot of Republicans and a lot of ideologues have come to understand is that they lost the moral culture war on the trans issue. They lost. It's why they flail as much as they do, because they're trying to claw back what little bit of public appeal they can. But every single day, one more person meets, interacts, it has a family member who is trans, and every day trans identity is personalized to a lot of people. And the longer that goes on, the more people will stop seeing it as this monolithic, scary, obscure group that they've never heard about, and more like, oh, their neighbor that made them really nice cookies. You know, the more you personalize that sort of stuff, the less effective the demonization becomes.
Call in that sense. Now, you know, they're going to charge him with 34 felonies for like putting a payment that nobody cares about in the wrong column.
Whoa.
Each one's basically the same.
34,
but with a different date each time. And obviously they have no
34
case, so it's either going to fail or it's
instances
going
of
to
doing
stand
that.
because of a biased judge, and then it's going to fail after it's appealed. You know, I've heard that the Trump legal team is preparing to file motions to dismiss it based on the statute of limitations, the intent, political motivations, among other prosecutorial overreaches. But even when
okay. So let's break that down really quickly. Doubt people ever support male to female transgenders in female sports. So this is a question. Okay, so that is a question of spectrum in terms of how much are we willing to be lenient of trans women in women's sports, right? Like that's because there is, if you've never interacted with a trans woman, there you might have the. I feel like a lot of people have what is it? I feel like a lot of people have this in their mind when they think of trans women in women's sports, right? Like this is the what a lot of people think of when they're thinking about, oh, the you know this is what trans women look like. Fucking Macho Man Randy Savage out here. What it actually tends to look like, what trans women actually tend to look like isn't that far off from most women. Also, there is a I mentioned spectrum. What I meant actually was threshold. There is a threshold where there is a threshold that we as a society, I think, can be permissive of. There is also a threshold in which we can't be permissive of. Somebody who went through male puberty, for example, probably has even after being on estrogen for a while, probably will always have a lingering advantage over women in women's sports. Now the question becomes, at what point do we draw the line where we say, okay, having this much acumen because of your male puberty is unfair? And that's absolutely true. That there is not a world where all trans women will be able to compete with all cis women in, college sports, high school sports, whatever. But there is a threshold where we can say, yeah, some of these trans women absolutely are closer to women and probably are worse than some women in terms of athleticism sometimes than they are than they would be if specifically they didn't go through male puberty. This also runs into the issue of, okay, the solution to this is hormone blockers for people who might want to transition later so that they don't go through that male puberty, so they don't even gain that developmental advantage. Unfortunately, and this is where I get irritated because Republicans are very opposed to hormone blockers, but they're also opposed to unfair advantages in women's sports. But the hormone blockers are the solution to that. So it's kind of a case where you give them the solution, they don't like it, so what? We just, nobody gets to, trans women just don't get to compete at all. And that's what they want. But that's the solution. If you don't like it, tough titties. I don't know what to tell you. But that's the solution that we have. And in terms of, what else did you say? Bathrooms. So in terms of bathrooms, that's another case where you have probably, I don't know if you're a man, but I'm going to assume you are. You have probably shared the bathroom with a trans man at least once in your life. And do you know why you didn't notice? Because you were just using the bathroom. Most people, when it comes to the bathroom debate, what comes up a lot is anxiety and fear over possible assault by trans women to women in those bathrooms, in that space, right? But there are two problems with that. The first one being that we don't have any data. There is no study, there's no data showing that cis women are more in danger with the presence of transgender women in their restrooms. There is no data to support that. What there is data to support is that trans women going into men's room leads to a disproportionate amount of extra danger to their assault, meaning that it's more dangerous for trans women to go into men's bathrooms, since there would be some assumption that they're, or there's the belief that they are males, right? We make it, instead of men's room and women's rooms, male rooms and females rooms. But again, that's not capturing enough of the kind of variance we have in human identity, meaning trans women would go into those bathrooms and probably get assaulted by men who are of dubious persuasion, we'll say. So we know that that danger is there for trans women, and it's not for cis women. The other argument is, even if you did that, the argument a lot of times is, well, what if a man can just go into a woman's restroom and like assault somebody? Well, here's the thing about that. That can already happen, and men can already do that. Men, regardless of how they identify, can already enter into women's spaces and assault them. There is not this is not a barrier. There isn't there isn't a chromosomal barrier in the door hinge when it comes to the bathroom. Like, that's just, it's not a thing. You can never really stop that aspect of that. If there is a man who wants to, predate on a woman just because she goes in the bathroom, does not make her any more safe. What makes people more safe is going to bathrooms in groups, maybe, but again, and that would be a response to all danger at all times. You're always safer in larger groups. So that's the thing with bathrooms. Or social engineering in schools. That one, nobody's being socially engineered by schools. I don't know. That one's really just feels on that one, I hate to say. But most men are worse than high level female athletes. That's not an argument. High level men will always be better than high level women, even after transitioning. Again, you missed the part where I said puberty blockers. There is a threshold. Not all, unless you're telling me that there is no athletic man who can be outperformed by an athletic woman. That doesn't exist. Simply put, there are absolutely women who outperform men on an athletic basis in athletics. Happens all the time. Men are not a monolith, and not always better than women in sports. That's why I said it's a threshold. It's a spectrum. It's what we can allow for. Obviously, there will be a cutoff point, but there's not going to be a, I don't think there should be a blanket ban on trans women in women's sports. There just should be a threshold as determined by sports scientists. I don't know what those are called. They're like sports and athletic doctors. Those people, along with the Olympic has their boards, and all these places have their boards of what they deem as fair in the organization. Those are questions for those groups, I think, not questions for the government to be concerned with. Let's see. The first problem of the trans agenda. This should come to understand that this is a right-wing ideology which requires privileges from society for a separate small caste of people. What? Okay. I didn't understand the beginning of that, so I'll just address the second part. What privilege do trans women get that everybody else does? That's not. They just want to use the restroom. That I think everyone has a right to use the restroom. Also, we give privileges to a lot of small castes of society. We put ramps in for people who can't walk. That is a privilege that they get. We don't have to do that, but it is they don't have a right to shop at this or that store, but we install ramps. That is also a societal privilege that we offer people to accommodate them in the pursuit of performing economic what's the word I'm looking for? Economic participation. Now, what's wrong with privileging some groups and accommodating them in our society. We can accommodate basically whatever we're permissive of. That's my argument, is that we accommodate what we can and don't accommodate what we can't. And where those lines are subjective and arbitrary and usually very debatable. This is the hill you're dying on. You sacrifice Medicare for all for gender ideology nonsense. When did I ever sacrifice Medicare for all? I support Medicare for all. Why can't we have both? I don't believe in this dichotomy that you can either have Medicare for all or affirm the human rights of transgender people. I don't see those two things as different. That's like, you know, I don't see how those two things are how one negates the other.
And this case gets tossed out, it's not over. Like, they could have him declared ineligible to run under the insurrection clause of the 14th Amendment, which still would probably fail because I don't think they'd get the votes in the Senate. And even if they did, then the Supreme Court would have to ultimately uphold it, which I don't think is likely. But the point is that it's not about one of these things working. If it does, great. The big thing is about demoralizing Trump and wasting his time and wasting his resources and doing the same.
I love demoralizing Trump. It's my favorite thing to do.
Just like it always has been. I mean, if they do have to run against him again in 24, they'll be ready to fortify it all over again if Republicans don't do anything to stop that. Like, don't get me wrong, but they'll humiliate your president because they hate him. But more importantly, it does send a message to people out there who want to challenge the system because they hate what it's doing to our country, to a country that they grew up in and that they love. It doesn't matter if you're Donald John Trump. You're a beloved cultural icon, a household name. You've made billions of dollars. You've been articulating basically the same handful of ideas for your entire career in the public.
Handed down billions of dollars.
Ideas that most people agree with because they're objectively uncontroversial. People have been wanting you, begging you to run for office for decades. It doesn't matter. We will take that away from you. You can even have the support of tens of millions of American patriots. We will beat you down. We will use our media.
It's almost like you having support from people and American voters doesn't negate the fact that if you broke the law, you know, have you ever heard, you know, the old phrase still stands. If you don't want to do the time, then don't do the crime.
To take your reputation from you, we will use our systems of power.
Maybe Trump should have thought about all of this before he broke the law.
And even if you don't quit, there will be
if he's a representative of all these people, you know, great power, great responsibility. Nobody.
That sends a message.
Am I the only one who read that?
The people who he represents and says, give up. But maybe even more importantly, it sends a message to good people who want to take a stand for their country by challenging that power structure. And that message is, you will lose. And we just have to ignore that because so many times.
Unfortunately, John Doyle's analysis of the actual system is wholly how do we put this? Inadequate, because his entire structural critique is only based on partisan politics. It's really only interested in the attack of his group and the defense of his group. That's really all it ever is. He can't quite understand that the structures that bear down on normal Americans are not campaign finance laws. It's wage degradation. It's a lack of health care, something that Trump only paid lip service to and never did anything to substantively address. So I don't know what to tell you, man. Your Messiah here didn't do anything to help you or the people he represents to benefit their lives, to improve their situation. He just didn't.
Particularly within the fight against communists. And I know it's kind of a meme at this point in certain circles to bring up things like the Russian Civil War, but there are so many cases where if people just held on a little bit longer, stayed focused, maintained the will to fight, they could have achieved the win conditions. They could have won, but they became demoralized, and ultimately that's what sealed their fate. And there's nothing more important than maintaining morale. Hope is a virtue, and I am eternally white-pilled. You cannot be fazed by the humiliation rituals. They are designed to
I love the white pill.
That's why we can't let the persecution
That's the one
of Trump
where you think
demoralize us.
white people are better than everybody else.
Right? We have to embrace it.
Because Western civilization.
If they don't mugshot him, that's why. It's going to be because of that. Because Trump would throw that image on a t-shirt and raise $20 million for his campaign practically overnight. Because
and he did.
The persecution of Donald Trump vindicates everything that we've suspected about the
he
rock
did
in
do
our
that.
country. And honestly, thank God for Donald Trump. Like, who else would have done this? Even if Trump fails, which he won't, a billionaire icon of American popular culture, supermodel wife by his side, that's truly the best last stand we could have asked for from an America that just doesn't exist anymore. Like, men from that cloth are no longer produced. He literally took up politics as a hobby.
Imagine thinking that your man of the people is a billionaire who was married to a supermodel and was born a billionaire. Like, what's the American story here? He's just a rich kid. That's all he is. I've never understood this. I've never understood it.
destroyed several American political dynasties just by being funny, made Americans believe in greatness again,
Hell
in
yeah.
themselves again. Like, even if this is just remembered as the dying embers of the fire, it's a great story, and I'm proud of it. And I hope it doesn't get to that point, but I
hope
believe
it
that these
does.
people will do anything, and I mean anything, to prevent Trump from being sworn in on January 20th, 2025. I mean, they've said as much. They've said under no circumstances can Trump be allowed to take office again. And I don't believe that they'll necessarily act on that.
Are they going to do? Are they going to? Are they going
to? Man with the golden mane, but I believe that they.
Are they going to invade the Capitol? Are the leftists as Antifa going to storm the Capitol and stop the votes?
That because I can't remember the last time their actions were less extreme than their rhetoric, unless it's simply a failure to execute, which is different from a reasoned choice to not do something. And even if he wins again, it won't stop. I mean,
I love how January 6th just doesn't exist.
You are going
for
up
these
against
people.
one of the most sophisticated power conglomerates in the history of the world, and there's no escaping. You can only face it. Even if you go to a red state,
oh,
you go somewhere
absolute, dude,
away from the cities, they're effectively.
Okay, look, I'm not a big Trump guy, and I really can't stand DeSantis, but oh god, do I want to watch them fight? I would pay money to let them both get on a debate stage and just fucking tear each other apart. Or at the very least, I think more likely Trump would probably tear DeSantis into shreds. But still, let them fight. I want to see that. That shit will be entertaining as fuck.
Into your territory through things like social media, and it's going to make it blue within a decade or two. Like your kids, your neighbors, if they have an internet connection,
cutting a good promo can get you over.
To the regularly scheduled programming, they're consuming the propaganda. They're either going to support the incoming change or they will step out of the way of it. You can't run away from it. They're just going to build up more power and then come after you later. Like that's why morale is everything. Pay very close attention right now to who is blackpilling. Pay very close attention to who's ready to throw in the towel. If you think it's bad now, you are not ready for what comes later. You know, I tweeted this out because I'm back on Twitter now. I said, once again, thanking God that our enemies are incompetent freaks who can barely hold eye contact while ordering a coffee. There's blood in you that fought off the British Empire.
This is why I don't
make
drink
it just
coffee.
fine against whatever this is. And some guy responded with, when is the right going to stop pretending that its enemies are incompetent? They're the ones always beating us, which is ironic because I'm the first guy to point that out. Like, I've been saying this forever. But the thing is, that is actually compatible with my tweets completely because, yes, they have all the power, but these people are not the people who built that system. They cannot maintain this system. They are riding a wave of momentum that is destined to crash. Like, the people who are capable of maintaining this system, they're either turned off by it
What's
or
the
they're heading
system?
into retirement.
I never understand what the system, some of these folks talk about. I don't know what system they're talking about. I understand it as capitalism and as specifically late stage capitalism under what is, at least in my opinion, crony capital or crony democracy. But does John Doyle think any of that? Does John Doyle think the economic persuasion of the country is relevant at all to where we are, to where, you know, Republican voters are? I don't think so. He doesn't have any capital critique. It's all just partisan stuff.
Action, mass immigration, etc. So yeah,
it's all. I want to go back to
really
19.
Yeah, they're coming for our kids. Meanwhile, U.S. global supremacy is collapsing. The economy's a tinderbox, and all of the people in charge of figuring this out are. This is not an unwinnable
capitalism.
Like anybody telling you otherwise is weak or stupid or both.
Precarious.
These extreme measures are just desperate attempts to reinforce and solidify their power. They're prideful victory laps. Yeah, we're just going to have to kind of maintain composure through these.
Don't do that.
That we
do
are
not subscribe to his
history.
channel. Subscribe to my channel.
Rosie O'Donnell's disgusting. I mean, both inside.
Rosie is collapsing partly because of the sanctions. Trump. Yeah, really. Hey. Okay. Well, that was fun. That was fun and also kind of. You ever eat something and you just think to yourself, wow, that had like negative nutritional value. That's how I felt about that. You know, John Doyle, a perpetually funny character. Somebody only the internet could have come up with. But, anyway, okay. All right. I think that's it for the day, right? Yep, that's the last topic. Yep. Okay. Cool. Tomorrow, do we have anything? Actually, no, I don't think I have anything tomorrow. I'm sure I'll find stuff throughout the day. Either way, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed any of what you saw, if you learned anything, got some catharsis, just like lurking in chat like some people might, you should totally hit that follow button if you're on Twitch. If you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button. Both of those things are very cool. People are doing them more often now than they ever have before, you know, especially with this channel. So you should join the masses on that one. But otherwise, that's going to be it for me today. I'll see everybody. It's 7 o'clock Mountain Time tomorrow, and Thursday I think we're going to be doing a afternoon show again, but tomorrow will be the normal 7 o'clock time. But otherwise, yeah, everyone have a lovely day. Go and have some nice dinner if it's not dinner time for you yet. If it is dinner time, I hope your food was good. Play some video games. Don't play some video games. Watch wrestling if you do that. You're very cool if you do. And I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye.